Well, Matt Scanlan, you are the fucking man, brother, and I'm glad to have you.
I'm stoked to do this.
Matt is about to do an art show at Magnetic in Fort Collins, and we're in my little house / studio, and if you were to look around the room, you'd see some amazing Matt Scanlan paintings.
You mean the den?
The devil den. The devil dogs. The devil dugout. No, but yeah, you would see a lot of... I'm looking at Matt's flyer right now, and it's fucking dope. Completely hand-painted. And this guy is a painter. He's a tattooer. He's a beekeeper. He's a fucking solid man. He's a husband, a friend of fucking... He is a friend of everyone.
Hey,
so
I'm trying my best, you know. But hey,
you're fucking killing it.
You know, and hey, I think you've always been one to say be a student, you know, and that's something. Be a student, you know. Yep. I want to always be that kind of.
Be with 2 E's.
Hey, exactly. And that's what's so exciting. You know, this show is kind of like, I don't know. It's definitely been learning, you know, with all the different, you know, I mean, art shows or, you know, you see. You know, fancy ones or just more like rustic ones, and this is kind of one that I feel like is at a gallery. Yep. The last one I had was just not what I wanted.
It was at True Brewing, and it was awesome.
I had a great one, you know, but this is one that, like, you know, you get to like present it in a certain way.
Yeah.
This, I'm so excited. You know, it's a big space, and you know, you get to have a more professional feel to it.
You're gonna kill it, man.
It's gonna be dope. It's been like where I get to kind of maybe not show off, but kind of just be like, this is all the excitement that I see about beekeeping. Maybe I get to, like, you know, not nerd out, but these bees are just so, like, I mean, the amount of stuff that you kind of have to learn and just kind of invest in when you start, you know, like, even if you get into a little bit of beekeeping, it just kind of turns into oh no, I need to learn this. I need to have this. And I mean, it's just so interesting.
You're doing the good work, man, because fucking bees and beekeeping is just important. You know this shit. It's gonna be fucking dope. And it's good to see a lot of people don't know as much about bees as you do. And especially if you're just not just a tattooer or just an artist, but you being the kind of person that you know, you're well studied, motherfucker. You got like, hey, you know something about everything. That's why we have conversations till fucking 5 in the morning.
And it just kind of go all over, you know. And it's good to do that, you know. I think, you know, if you're gonna try to, you know, kind of get into anything, you know, if you want to like maybe pick any kind of book up and kind of just really, really kind of be that student, I think that's something that, you know, with beekeeping's been like really cool, because I mean, it's gone
discipline now,
and it's gone back so far. And even with tattooing, you know, I feel like there's been those old books that you kind of like you creep upon, and they got these like references of like old photos or just like old techniques or just something that you're like, there's something like that's cool about that, you know. And even with beekeeping, I got blessed. I was given a book that was, you know, one of the older editions of this like really famous. It's ABC XYZ of beekeeping.
No shit.
And it's come out.
You want people to know that?
Oh, you know, hey, I'll tell everybody. But, you know, I've got a version.
Got that secret bee book, son.
I've got, you know, one from, it's the turn of the century one, you know, and there's 150 different versions, you know, it comes out every year.
Okay.
And so every year, you know, it's not like it's gotten more like generic, but the cover is just like a photo. But this one I have is like there's an embossed bee that's in gold, and it has like, you know, like everything's like raised, it's leather, it's got this like beautiful, just like, you know, like the effort in it, you know. And so you see that, and you just see how long the tradition, you know, a lot of tradition is kind of like stemmed from.
It's kind of like a beekeeping almanac, basically.
Oh, it has, you know, ABC, you know, and like an index of how to take care to just like the beauty and like the knowledge, you know, and how it's like even just started, you know. So it's kind of like even like tattooing, where you kind of see these images that kind of inspire you to like, man, I want to like learn everything if there's something to learn, you know.
Yeah, that's smart. I mean, you definitely. I'm looking around at Matty's stuff right now, and basically he's got, and I've seen a lot of the paintings he's made for this show that he has coming up. And actually, I should say the show is called. Say the name of this again for me.
It's Apis imminens.
Okay, and it's what? So what's the subtitle?
The subtitle: The World of the Honeybee.
Cool.
And Apis imminens, you know, it's Latin, and apis is, you know, the word for bee. Imminens, you know, it's something that, you know, bees are always, you know, they're trying their best, but there are these threats, you know, and so, you know, bees, as successful as they are, the imminent threat that, you know, if we're not careful, you know, like it's just it's a trickle effect.
That's
you know?
a fucking dope name, actually.
It's not just one thing that they're messing with, and I'd say 10 years ago, I think the first kind of like, like, oh no, the bees, and there was this colony collapse disorder, and like people didn't know there's multiple things, and so it's kind of like when people talk about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
It wasn't just
one
big bang, but there
yeah.
was a global temperature warm, and then there was, the continents did this, or the water level. So like with bees, there are like really positive things, but maybe
we'll break those down more towards later on. I'm going to ask you some of these questions ahead.
Sorry.
I know you're fucking like, this is what I love about it is if you could see Maddie's enthusiasm and his passion for this, you would know how noble and how sincere he's going about this whole process. I mean, if someone's going to make a movie about the Thundercats, you'd want them to know everything, or the Ninja Turtles. You want them to know fucking everything. You want all that authenticity to be there.
Like
So like, if somebody is going to present something about bees, this guy has gone to every length to show you all the threats to bees. And so the namesake actually makes fucking perfect sense now that you say it. But that being said, I want to get back to the art show in a little bit. But let's talk about who you are and where the fuck you come from.
Okay.
You are from Colorado, right? You born here?
Born and raised.
Where were you born?
I'm from Pueblo,
Okay.
Local boy. I went,
what kind of city is Pueblo?
Pueblo is, I would say smaller town. It's got a couple parts where, I grew up suburbs. There's a Pueblo West would be, the suburb I grew up in.
So that's where all the white kids live?
Definitely where the white kids lived. I got real fortunate. I had great... I would tell you, like, there was a reservoir, maybe 15 minutes on a bike. As a kid, that was kind of nice. I had endless backyard, and it was like BML land. So, you could just endlessly bike for any and me and a buddy every day. Just
going out and
on our bikes,
nature.
going to the lake, So, I never felt like I was really in, like, suburbs, and, like, you didn't even have sidewalks. Like, you couldn't, like, skateboarding... You would get speed wobble on blacktop and die. Like, on my street, it was, like, no joke. So, it wasn't really, like...
And Pueblo is mostly, notoriously, like, it's more of a Mexican town.
Heavily Hispanic.
Yeah, best fucking food. But.
Great food, but just not great for, like, just the overall city. It's not in, like, any kind of, like...
It's not like Fort Collins, where Fort Collins is so whitewashed.
It's not growing, I'd say Pueblo's regressing. It's hard to say, but my hometown's just not really it doesn't have an industry.
It'll get there. I remember I went down to Pueblo and did some graffiti way back in the day, and fucking everyone in Pueblo was cool.
And that's
and like I ate good food, and like it just reminded me of like shitty towns back in Mass, but like towns that I liked.
You put up with it.
Cool people were from there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're from a town that kind of sucks sometimes, and it not necessarily sucks. I don't want to shit on Pueblo, but like, if you're from a town that has a little bit harder time with the money, and like, everyone in the town's working class, and everyone comes from a kind of a rougher background, you're making the most with it. And I think that sometimes the coolest fucking people come from those places, and you're definitely a living testament to that.
Well, hey, I appreciate that. I think, hey, maybe... we kind of maybe see each other's personality a little bit, and that's something that I think that's what I like that in people, though. If they have that, like, not edge necessarily, but man, like
I grew up in a shitty place, yo.
I'm a fucking grinder, I want
kid.
people that like give a fuck, and there's not to say I'm gonna go on a ramp about people, but man, like the people that are like really passionate or just like I want to be good at whatever I'm doing, it almost comes out in people that I can't fail because my fucking family ain't got money.
Right.
I ain't no trust fund kid, so. What do you think I got? A retirement plan? Like this is plan A, bro.
Yeah.
So, not to say I ain't gonna strike out on something, but I'm at least try.
Yeah. No, you can tell like when people are from a certain area, certain neighborhood, like where all the place I was from in Mass, you don't have any other fucking choice but to try to make the most of what you have, what days you have on Earth. And anyone I've met from Pueblo that's like moved on and they've moved out of there, they always have this like kinship to it. They always love Pueblo and speak highly of it, but they also understand that like that city was formative in who they became.
Oh, I agree.
Which actually leads me to ask you, in a city like Pueblo, you becoming an artist, like I've known you for like 10 years now, and I know you as a musician. You're fucking amazing. This fucking Maddie can play every instrument. Okay, we were in a band together. This kid could have played the drums with his feet, his fucking guitar with his hands, and still sang better than all of us.
Too much, goddamn.
but no, he was fucking, he was vital. But
it was so fun being in a band with you. We gotta put that in.
I know.
There,
we'll do it again.
It was so fun.
We'll do it again when we're older.
We will. Men. Oh, 2-piece band. That'd be sick.
Dude, actually, we'll talk about that.
It's easy.
But you have, when I first met you, you were like a young kid. How old are you now?
Almost gonna be 30. I mean,
so
I'm 29 now.
You were like 20 then.
Yeah, huh? Just right into my apprenticeship. As a person.
I remember you were one of those people when you meet somebody young, and you see them, like Hannah that I work with at Magnetic. She's somebody who's like immediately can see it. You were the same thing. It's like some people have this laser focus, and you're like, there's a fucking stone cold killer living inside this motherfucker, and all they need is the chance to get out. And I think that when I first met you, you were very ambitious, and you were also very much like, you're a sponge. You could fucking learn anything really super quick, and you listened. And a lot of young people, when you're trying to help them out in tattooing, or like whoever they're learning from, they're like, yeah, man, whatever, cool.
Stubborn, yeah. Right. They just, and I'm always gonna be, hey, we all gotta be stubborn at parts, but man, at that part, man, apprenticeship, I really love like old time and tradition and like the old my dad was an electrician, so him as a master electrician, you hear the apprenticeship to the journeyman to the master, and he tells me about this.
So cool.
Dude, it was the coolest, dude, and not to say I failed and didn't follow in his suit, but his back and the way his injuries in his life, I don't think we could have ever been where he wanted at one point. Right. For me to probably journeyman through college, have my master's license, just and that kind of thing.
He just wanted to have that stability.
Just to have it as a backup, and I just love the idea of learning and just sacrificing for this ultimate payoff, and it's this ultimate I've always thought that, man, to learn a craft, that's the ultimate goal,
right.
That's the ultimate, why I'm here, and there's people that maybe, there's other people's, oh man, I'm here to cook, that's a craft. There's other crafts, but man, there's things that you can just blinders on.
But you had been good at whatever you did, and I'm not just here to flatter you and kiss your ass because you're my boy, but this is my fucking first actual artist interview podcast. And I really wanted to interview Matty, not just because he has a show coming up and I want him to be able to have a chance to talk about that, but actually, Matty's a particularly interesting artist. He's a fucking tireless worker, and I think that you're the kind of person, it doesn't matter if it would have been tattooing, you could have been a fucking NASCAR driver, you could have been fucking white rapper, whatever you needed to do. You would have been amazing
just to do it. No,
because you got that work ethic.
Thank you.
You're the kind of person who, all right, so people say there's such thing as talent, and then people say there's such thing as there's that element that's missing from some people who aren't super creative maybe, and then other people who are creative have an abundance of it. You're one of those people where talent is met by you finding out the answers. You calling yourself a student and saying you like to learn, I think that that's 100% true, because if you're not good at something, or if you don't understand it, you'll fucking study it, and next thing I know, next time I see you, you're a fucking master of it.
Ooh, hey, that's, I appreciate that.
It's just crazy. It's good to see.
And tattooing's the ultimate, I would say, maybe, it'll sober you when you're not, taking it as serious as you need to, and that's something you do maybe a tattoo you don't prepare as much as you need to, especially early on.
This one's getting drawn on.
Oh, dude, and that's, I'm a product of, seeing other tattooers, and you want to see maybe the best of everything when you're young, but man, I grew up in some situations in a Pueblo shop that, it's something that, man, I didn't see masters of their craft, and, not to say I saw the ultimate master when I, came up and saw a couple other tattooers, but, sometimes when, you're around a different creative, person, and you're there's an entirely different, way you could be, oh my God, there's this in this part of, I didn't even know art existed in this format,
right.
And that's something that, with tattooing, if you want, it can open up, and where there's oh, I've preferred this my whole career, man, I can enjoy this too.
Right.
And so your limitations.
What do you mean specifically with that?
I mean, even as my tattooing has gotten, I would say hopefully better, there's definitely been a technical, like where you want to, like, reach a pinnacle. You want to see this,
you're
like...
hitting that craftsman side.
You just want to hit, I want to go from a fucking apprentice to maybe... I've strived to this journeyman level where, it can be expected. I have this level of, productivity, this and this. I've strived, and then at some point, like, there's this ultimate, 10,000 hour quote that, you hear. I think it's way more than that. And I think tattooing, it's easy to get way over 10,000, but this master level of tattooing, where I don't think, I think almost any genre of tattooing, you could spend 10,000 hours in.
Sure.
So,
imagine all the dudes, though, that have spent 10,000 hours doing Cherry Creek and never got better, though. Like, imagine all the dudes who have done 10,000 hours of tattooing and never moved the needle.
Can't do a line straight.
So what you're saying, though, about it's not just sometimes about whoever you are. You could do those 10,000 hours to 100,000 hours of tattooing, whatever it be. But who you decide to be within those hours, and you growing. And I think that with you, you're always able to go, you know what, man, I'm gonna up my game and get cleaner this way, or I'm gonna add these extra elements.
Right.
And you're still drawing by hand. You're still drawing like.
Right. Well, and I think with the shop guys that I get to work with, and I always think you work with different people that maybe the tattoos you get are assigned differently than. And I get to work with people that I don't want to say draw a different way in a technically simpler way.
Right.
But
you
lately,
got like a black and gray dude at your shop, which is Think Tank South in Littleton, Colorado.
I work, Think Tank South, know, and even
by Matt Sager, who's
the best,
not only handsome but incredible at what he does.
Just the best of men.
He's got a big dick.
He's giant. Yeah. And I think Adam, I work with Adam Rosenthal. He does he's Japanese, just in this way that is so folky and like just so technically perfect that, man, like even, Rick is doing a Japanese a certain way that Brown. Rick Brown, and I get to do tattoos that are kind of getting more fine line and more to a technical level, which, it kind of, turned into, with the beekeeping, it's almost perfect because I'm doing more of a smaller subject matter. And so even my tattooing, I would say I kind of like have geared with my line work, and even like my assignments kind of get into these more micro, and like all my stuff is kind of getting into this, like, not even like maybe consciously it's all happening, but it just kind of happens. Now I'm the guy that's doing the smaller stuff and putting more into it, which is kind of just as much fun as doing a rose that's the size of a softball that takes an hour. I can spend 3 hours on I'd say
thing,
on a tennis ball rose, and make it the best thing I've ever done, and do 5 different textures that I haven't really, done in my first couple of years.
And you smoke weed, so how the fuck do you manage to be able to get all that fine detail and be a part of it?
And that's what I try to like break that cycle, because I got a beautiful wife who works her ass off and can't smoke, and so if I'm at the house with my PJs on, looking like some asshole stoner, and I got a list of paintings on the wall, and that's the thing, like with the honeybees, you talk about like the hardest working, like as far as insects and something you talk about look up to. I mean, that is kind of a striving, kind of like, oh, that's a motivator. They're working right now, so
that's a good fucking point. I like that correlation. I mean, Matt, you're pretty ingrained within the bees. I mean, it's not just that you're a beekeeper and you maintain these bees, but you're making honey and you're doing that. And we're going to come back to that. I want to come back to that, but I think it's more important to tell a little bit more early on about who you are. So we got you at where you're in Pueblo, and you finished kind of an apprenticeship sort of, and then I know you came up and worked with us at Magnetic.
Came up to the first Magnetic, and that, it just kind of shaped my ultimate, where I went with tattooing. And to kind of see something different, and that's something we were talking about that kind of like set the blinders, you see something new that just is like exciting.
Yeah.
And that's something with tattooing that just, it grabs you, and it's a subject matter that you want to just be like, let me explore, and I think with Magnetic, it was this travel where it was like the journey every week, kind of going up there.
You were driving from Pueblo to Fort Collins, which is how long?
I mean, it was Loveland. I mean, so it
Loveland,
wasn't quite as far,
Fort
you know.
Collins. Duh.
But come on, this was your
I
shop.
lived in it.
I love you, Sean. But yeah,
I lived in that fucker for
I
3
left
years.
Pueblo's exit 90.
What kind of weed is
Loveland is 255. So that shit, I would leave at 8 o'clock, and I would get to Sean's shop at noon.
Whoa.
Like that shit, or you know,
Yeah, that's
8:30
pretty far.
sometimes, you know. And I'm telling you, it was the best part of my week going up, and like that. I think was this kind of like, I don't know, exciting kind of like driving force.
Yeah.
You know, that kind
I
of.
agree, because you'd come up and you'd already be like, we would be all be sitting there and be fucking stoned, having fucking like, you know, paint nights up there, and Matty would show up and he'd be fucking like full of energy, and like, you know, the way that when someone first gets into tattooing or into art or whatever it is, you want them to be passionate and have all
It's
that.
infectious.
Yeah.
You know, that feeling of like someone who's just like newly in love. You know?
Yeah. And when you
That's what
came
it
up,
feels
that's what
like.
made us too. We got excited
And
because you were
that's
excited.
it gets you with that feeling, you know. And you know, I was lucky because that was something you would usually have a painting, and maybe that kind of would set the tone for maybe some productivity.
Yeah.
You know, because you wouldn't want to come up and not have something to contribute. Because that's the thing, as a student, you know, you'd at least want to be like, man, I had a week away, I didn't take anything from our last lesson,
Right.
to like, you know, come, you know, and back to even music, I had a guitar teacher, you know, and that was something, you know, you had a whole week to
Yeah.
learn this one little
chord,
page,
yeah.
you know, and he would look at you with this like, dude, like if you know, I mean, like, come on, man, like you can't learn half a page, but you're gonna like ask me to learn this Blink-182 song at the end of the lesson.
Right.
Learn this stuff and you'll be able to know this
Right.
by ear, like, you know. And so it's the, you know, tree through the forest, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's like the apprenticeship. So maybe, you know, having something like an early, like a musician kind of like, okay, that was one
That's
of
a
like,
good point, yeah.
you know,
That's
and
a very
like
good point.
you don't listen to that teacher, you're stubborn.
Yeah.
And I failed, like I didn't do good at learning how to read music.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe having that be like that ultimate, like, hey man, if that first teacher, and guess what, you didn't learn, so you didn't listen to the teacher, you didn't learn.
Yeah.
I think tattooing, anybody can give you some type of help with tattooing, you know. Any type of tattooer that I went, you know, ultimately, you know, from your shop, Sean, you know, to Wichita.
Yeah.
Which was awesome, because then whole new, I mean,
And
completely
you were at
Hellbomb
Hellbomb Tattoo.
Yeah, which, you know, Wichita,
And
Kansas. Steve Turner, you know, and I mean,
fucking Steve Turner,
just-
awesome machine builder, fucking
just the
awesome
man,
tattooer.
you know, and that's what
Cool
drove
band.
me out there. Just, I mean, the ultimate, like, dude, I mean, tattooers, like, just, like, guy, man, and he, like, was almost like another, you know, I would say just mentor, you know.
Right. Yes, I
the,
would agree.
The whole Kansas situation, you know, you have to move there, and you can't just start as a tattooer. You literally have to start, you know, a whole new apprenticeship, no matter at any point.
Yeah.
And so,
I was seeing your elbow.
Oh,
Go
me
ahead, sorry.
And so even, I mean, it was like I kind of had a second apprenticeship, like, and it was like
Yeah.
kind of one that was like on paper this time, and so it was kind of funny, you know. And like I was already tattooing maybe 3 years.
And you had to do.
I had to
jump
like
through the rules.
log 50 tattoos. I had to literally go to Topeka to take like a practical examination
Yeah.
and like explain a procedure. You know, it was, I mean, not in a bad way, because I mean, you know, other professions, they do stuff like that, but
Yeah.
you know, after being a tattooer for a
For
few
so long,
years,
you're like, this is silly.
oh, it was ridiculous, you know. And then ultimately moving back, you know,
Yeah.
to Colorado, there was this, you know, call from Shawn McDonald to, you know, the boys are back, you know,
Yeah.
and this like
And we were
energy.
for like 90 days.
Hey, you know what? You know, this timeline stuff,
Yeah.
it's okay, but
Right.
man, this ultimate fire to come back to
Yeah.
Colorado.
Yeah. Well, you came back and I feel like you gained a lot while you were in Wichita. You gained a lot of discipline. I think you.
I took oil painting classes.
Yeah, that's right.
And
That's
it
right.
was
You started.
like-
You started
I-
oil painting before me.
And it was completely independent of you, which, you know, it's funny because, like, you know, like I'll tell people like, oh, I love oil painting, and you know, I work at a shop where everybody, you know, and we all love Sean, and you know, it's one of these things, you know, you mention Sean, and people are like, oh gosh, this or this, you know, they have some kind of thing, and you start
You're up there
mentioning
talking shit, fucking McDonald.
well, no, you mentioned a certain type of thing, and you know, I want to say, like, I mean, oil painting to me was always something like, it was like, why is watercolor looked down upon, maybe by like a grander art scheme, you know, and
Okay, like,
you know, and
it's more of an inferior medium to some people.
oh, you know, you would see oil painters talk about watercolor in this way that was like, oh, you know, if you only knew kind of way.
Yeah.
And as a tattooer, it's almost this oh, you think it's a new genre of tattooing I can't do?
Yeah.
And so maybe it was that ultimate, like, I'm just too ignorant to know that, man, oil painting it's a whole new deal, but I was driven to it. And they had just, these, like city classes that were just, like come in, take a class, and it was my first, and it was good because it gave me oil mediums.
So you were there with like a bunch of
like Hobby Lobby grandmas. It was like,
man, that's fucking awesome.
And then Mary Binford, I want to say her name. She is an amazing oil painter.
Nice.
I
saw some of her stuff.
She came out and had this beautiful like, hey guys, and just pulled out this 2x3, with like, 9 like beautiful like ladies all walking in this like, beautiful oil study. And she's like, oh, this is just, this is for a larger painting. This is just whatever.
Some studies.
And she like kind of put it to the side as it was like nothing, and I had, just this amazing like gravitation towards oil at that point.
Right.
So.
I know. I noticed because what I think is you experimented a lot with watercolors back then. You were doing a lot of like, not just tattoo imagery, because I remember you were doing a lot of like Japanese, especially after you got around Steve and those guys. And like all those guys at Hellbomb Tattoo, they're all fucking amazing artists. They all really care about classical, timeless work. And I think that they were able to give you some great guidance in that. But I think that you sought out more. And I think that's what ends up happening for anyone who does watercolor. They kind of go, this is really cool, and I could learn how to paint acrylic and maybe get like a little bit more highlights and shit in here, but maybe I'll go one step further and just go to oil.
Just explore, And even like we were even talking earlier, but like the amount of tattoos I were getting were changing when I went to Hellbomb.
Right.
And so then, not to say that those guys did a certain tattoo that I think I was doing the more complicated tattoos that were, like you were saying, exploring. And then I was thinking with, even the paintings I were doing were more watercolor, flash sheets. I love that stuff. I feel like you can do flash sheets till you die.
Yeah.
But then, like you're saying, it was just like, man, maybe I could do this with watercolor, then I would do this with watercolor, but that ultimate like
you would try something that looks a little bit more like a we used to call them paint.
A paint. It was the perfect way to put it, and we
not like a flash painting, not like a little tattoo thing, or not like a Japanese composition, but a paint.
Yeah, there's something without an outline on it, perhaps,
right,
or oh man, you did something that was like a background and there's perspective, like these things that everybody uses.
You put some opaque colors on top of it.
What's a highlight? Or and that's what something. It was something I was using when I was working, but you would say it and maybe not fully understand.
Right.
And then you would go to these oil classes, and if you're like this person, it's like almost like a math class in trigonometry, and if you faked it through geometry and all these other things, like you're using high math.
Right.
And so you can't just start oil painting and be like, oh yeah, I know about value. Yeah. I know about tint. I know about.
So you're saying you got a lot of the terminology.
Oh,
through.
It helped shape tattooing. Where I was like, oh my gosh, like I understand why like some of my black and gray maybe had this and that to it, or because if I did something in oil painting, I could just do something differently. All art I think helps each other.
Well, what made you want to become? All right, so then that's actually good, because that's my next kind of question for you is you paint in every medium just about, right? You do watercolor.
I try to.
Yep, you do
acrylic. Yeah, acrylic. I do a little bit. I like a liquid acrylic.
Right, you do the FW liquid acrylics, right?
Yeah, and that doesn't count. That's kind of more like a watercolor. But
yeah,
even
I know it is weird how you consider that. Like I think if even any tattooers listening right
now,
you'll do a PH Martin's water flash page, and you'll be like, and people will be like,
acrylic,
yeah, I put like, or they'll just say watercolor, right? And then but I've done like the fucking FW acrylic. As like a flash page, and I'll be like, I'm watercolor painting. I don't feel like I'm doing acrylic at all.
Totally.
So it is a different thing,
right?
But the acrylic being like the heavier body.
You tipped me on to when I think you were doing acrylic, and I think that was when I moved back, and I think you were at Black Atlas.
Yeah.
And so you were doing Star Wars paintings, and so we did soft body. And I not to say I didn't like it, but honestly, whenever you would, I tried soft bodies. I just didn't like the texture.
It's because it's
like see-through whenever you're putting it down, or just like...
Yeah, you might have been using a lot of transparent colors, too.
And I didn't prime the canvas. There's learning. And, now I look back, now I could
Dude, I didn't know what I was doing.
There's so much more I want to do with oil that, you know, it's...
Yeah, I look back and I'm like, dude, I fucking made more mistakes doing, especially in those Star Wars paintings. Some of them turned out dope.
There's some...
Right, but a lot of them took me a long time to kind of work it out.
It's the inspiration from McQuarrie, though, you know, and gosh,
yeah, McQuarrie,
dude,
Ralph McQuarrie,
like,
famous painter from Star
Wars painter that, like, he would take these, like, giant, like, strokes or these, like, beautiful, like, long lines that were, like, this is the most masterful look, and the way he can make things, like, the dimension is just...
because he worked for Boeing and shit. You have his book, right?
Oh, yeah, one of my prized possessions.
If there was a fire,
this would be the one book.
Coming.
You know what I mean? Not to say $500 is ever a lot for a book.
That's
but
a fucking lot. I don't own that fucking book. I wish I did.
I
owned a couple of his books.
The artwork of Ralph McQuarrie. Oh, it's so cool, Shawn. And
yeah. You know what? We're going to give Ralph McQuarrie a shout out.
He's always been just, I mean, you know, you can't grow up watching Star Wars without thinking Ralph McQuarrie, in my mind now, you know, which is, you know, I try to tell people every time I talk about Star Wars, like, and to this day, I think they always put little Easter eggs of his artwork in the new ones.
Yes, I agree. Especially when I watched Solo, I was like, there's a lot of fucking...
There's Ralph McQuarrie, like, concepts, you know, and even, like, some of the old, like, you know, like, early designs of people, they'll put those in, you know, in costumes and stuff. Oh, it's always that.
Well, that stuff definitely influenced me, and I think like, you know, you didn't really go off and start trying to do acrylic. I think like you were smart. You were like because acrylic is
hard,
dude. It's wonderful hard, for little paintings. Like I like making like little tiny paintings with them, but you get to a point where you're like, all right, if you understand watercolor and you understand acrylic, you should just really be painting oils, you know. And in the oil, a lot of people say, oh, you know, and this was my big Achilles heel, is I didn't do it because everyone said, oh, it's, you know, it takes so long, it's alchemy basically, and it wasn't. It was just like once I understood what to do with it, I was actually like, man, fucking oil's way easier than acrylic.
Just easy steps.
But you started painting oils before I did, and you were doing a lot of
landscapes,
and you were doing Lord of the Rings type stuff. I remember the first time you posted that fucking Hobbit hole painting, or you showed me. I think you sent it to me.
Yeah, I sent it a little text. Yeah,
dude, and I was like, part of me wanted to be like, this motherfucker's already good at this shit. But I was so impressed by it that I was like, this is fucking good, man.
Oh, hey, man.
Yeah, dude. And like, even to this day, well, I remember because, you know, I won't mention any names, but I remember I was talking to somebody about it, and they were like, well, this isn't right, and this isn't right, and this is right. And I was like, dude, that thing is fucking amazing, and you know it is. And I remember that person was like, a little... We'll talk about who after. But
okay. Yeah, they're like, oh,
you have your
ideas. They kind of probably dialed it in. Yeah.
But I remember thinking like, nah, this thing is like, it's a very good oil painting, and I remember thinking if you had already gotten to that point, and you hadn't even touched any acrylic paintings, like in the liquid,
from watercolor right to oil,
right? And I was like, holy shit!
I was a savage. You want to know? Okay, so the first lesson, it was like an 8x10, right? A piece of panel.
Okay.
So everybody had everything. I'm literally painting flat on the table with like long sleeve shirts. I have my entire forearms are covered in oil paint 5 minutes in, and I don't even know what's going on.
Right.
And she comes over and she's like, have you painted before?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you know, do a little bit of watercolor. And she's like, well, you're kind of picking this up okay, you know. She's like, you started with your darks and you're doing this, you know. She's like, you're a little unorthodox, so you want like an easel, you know what I mean? I didn't even have an easel at the time, you know, so it was that, like, raw, just like, oh, man, like, you know, maybe just, you know, watercolor, you know, you have these, like, you know, washes that you're just kind of like, I gotta move, you know, and, like, I don't know with oil, you know, I mean, you got all day, you can, you know, it's this build-up, or you can, like you're saying, I mean,
thin it out,
you can formulate it,
that shit.
We didn't, we're so just...
Dude, and, like, I remember you took classes, you were already putting oil paintings together. And I was kind of like, all right, now I'm fucking curious because this guy's doing this shit. And you would like kind of relay, but you were still out in Wichita, so you would relay some stuff to me. And then when you actually came back from Wichita, and I had already kind of started painting oils,
you were doing some big ones too,
right? But I think that we both figured out kind of, okay, so this is very much going to be like a trial and error thing. So what I wanted to kind of talk about was you're already a huge Lord of the Rings fan at this point, and you're picking, that's kind of like some of the subject matter you're going with in your early oil paintings,
right?
You know, you were doing like
big knights, you know,
yeah,
like
big
Lord
knights
of the Rings
awesome.
With like armor, and you know, and it brought me into that oil painting. I love the like, Renaissance period, that style of like big dramatic, these like
ornamental
heroes, these like epic, like, I wanted to paint my immortal type, characters, and I really thought that was something with oil, since it like stands the test of time. All these paintings could be, from Middle Earth type of thing. So maybe I could create my own characters, in that kind of artistic way, and that with Middle Earth, it was that perfect, perfect age to just really delve into that and just like you're saying, oh my gosh, the Hobbit hole was a painting that, I thought that was something I was like, oh, well, that went good. Maybe I can just kind of explore those like themes, those textures, and
but
even.
It was crazy when you did that, man, because you put, speaking of textures, what impressed me about that painting was, here's this painting where the composition looked really strong. And I'm sure it was like there was some reference photo that someone took at that angle, and it probably did it some justice. But the way you handled it, especially because you put lush flowers in it, you put like a gate in it. I remember like everything. You put like every little fucking detail, and most people don't try to even go for that in their first.
It was, oh man, and thank you. It was, and even the lady, that was still in those classes, and Mary, she was really good at like, like letting you like kind of experiment, but also like being like, hey, gray out some stuff. And like at the time, a term like that, even she would give you like a quick explanation, and even that's something that kind of helped, because she would like give you these like terms that if you didn't know, I would want to be that student to go like learn, be like, what does she mean by graying out stuff? And with like something like that where it's these kind of like, bushes and stuff that's like suggestive, it's something totally different than I was doing. And so, it's like
you're thinking you're trying to paint a literal bush, and she's saying this is more simple than you're doing.
You're going from an illustrative, like you're tattooing a line work on everything all day at work.
Right, every little leaf. And
from 6 to 8, no, what you're doing is suggestive, and, it's all about, the value here is where the shadow is, and, here, if the exposure is this, then the light, and you have these highlights, and, at the time, like, I'm tattooing, and I always thought that like I knew what I was talking about. And then it comes to now I'm right in front of a teacher who's like, okay, now paint these highlights, and I'm like, and so
what do you mean by highlights?
It brought me back to that tattooing where if like you want to like look like what you're doing, and then you fail, it's a humbling experience.
Yes.
So then it was like I need to learn and like explore, like you're saying, these maybe bigger Renaissance type, and art histories, like, you could spend forever.
Well, that's a good point. That's actually a great fucking point. What made you said you were into the Renaissance and stuff, so, but you're taking Lord of the Rings stuff and you're kind of giving it the Renaissance treatment.
The feel to it, right.
What guys were you interested in when you first, or were you even looking at artists, or were you more just looking at random paintings?
And that's the thing, there wasn't like specific like oil painters,
Gotcha.
there would be like, like, oh man, this like sci-fi artist that was like really in, R.G. Paul, I mean, always was like interesting, and like not necessarily Lord of the Rings, but his illustrations, but into like, Lord of the Rings, they have specific John Howe, Alan Lee,
the guys from the 70s, the guys from the books.
Frazetta, I mean, the totally. Hildebrandt brothers, those calendars are just, names, I mean, they're infamous, and like that style of like, it's like you've seen it, but it's like a forgotten time.
And what you're referring to is a lot of times you're seeing that really soft, loose background stuff, and then it's almost like watercolor illustration,
a dreamy, like a fairy tale. Even like a Mark Ryden type of like oil painting that and that was something that what you started painting. I almost felt like started like making me get more interested in Mark Ryden, and so like what you were doing, and you would put more allegory the way Mark Ryden would, and I felt like we didn't quite meet in the middle, but I was like, oh man, like your technical ability at oil painting far went down that route, and I was still in this very landscapey. She was like, oh, do you paint highlights on a mountain,
But
and
it's
important though.
Yeah, because you took, I feel like, a lot from what she had to give, and that's something that not a lot of people realize. Like, you could learn a lot from somebody who's a painter who's maybe not into the kind of shit you do, but they give you one or two tricks, and all of a sudden it plugs into your skill set where she maybe not be like, for instance, not to go off on a tangent here, but when people go sign up for the Michaels classes and they learn that what's his name, Bob Ross style.
Oh, right. Oh.
Right. Every time you do a landscape, and this probably frustrates the fuck out of you. Oh, it's just like Bob Ross.
Bob Rossing out.
Yep, and it's like Bob Ross is fine. We love Bob Ross. He's great.
He's amazing.
He's charming.
Yeah.
But Bob Ross is like, that'd be like if you said, Walmart has the best everything. You know, and it's not like a diss to Walmart or Bob Ross, but like, Albert Bierstadt, or however you say his name. How do you say his name? It's always different. Everyone says it different.
Bierstadt, I thought, and I mean, you do though. You hear, and it's like, I want to be fancy, but man, you look at how it's spelled, and
it's like Bierstadt.
Oh, and
sounds like a fucking Rammstein song.
Definitely German, but lived in America. Or it was born here, which is so cool. But
was he born here?
Or maybe at 2 or something like that.
Came over
real young, and I mean, grew up in America. Though,
and if you don't know who he is, look him up. We're lucky. We have a fucking sick painting of his at the Denver Art Museum of Estes Park, and then
you're kind of drawn to it. A lot of his stuff, it just has this like bigness to it,
right?
And just that's something in landscaping that I would be so young at saying I even do landscape paintings, because then you see someone who's a master at only that, or not only that style, but who's like the leader of that style.
And he's the best. Like no one, he's one of those guys that don't get enough recognition. When we see a fucking Bob Ross type effect, and people talk about him, or then people say that the Eric Kincaid, is that what it is? Eric Kincaid.
Yeah, Kincaid.
And it's like you see those little dreamy landscape paintings of a cottage off in the woods.
You're just like,
there's a little warm light in the window.
It's like they are beautiful. Oh my god,
yeah, they're beautiful paintings.
There's and like Church is another one.
Yeah, Church and Cole, Thomas Cole.
Oh, there's but Church had these like perspectives that even I think were more mysterious, or just more like adventure taken, to do these paintings. Like he had one that was like,
he had to get out there.
He did Antarctica too, and there was this one with glaciers, and
I know which one you're talking about.
It's got this turquoise in it. I mean, it'll blow you away, what I mean? He did the Heart of the Andes.
What you're referring to, I don't want to because this is like an audio more than it is visual. The guys we're talking about, if not everyone who knows, are the Hudson River painters. And if you don't know who they are, there's an amazing documentary on Amazon about the Hudson River painters. I would say if you're interested in oil painting at all, go seek that out, because there's so much information in there, and you've seen that, right?
Oh yeah, and that's the style. It's like such a it's like I love seeing illustration that's like almost like informative, but it has this like old kind of like we're the first to see it, and that discovery. A lot of like landscapes, but Bierstadt, he would be the first illustrating going to Yosemite, and so those paintings.
You do a little study.
Oh my gosh, and he would do things maybe in like. Like this, maybe not completely true, but it was such a dramatic, he would like...
I'm glad you said that too, because not a lot of people know that.
Oh, and it...
Like, you look at the...
it could be a composite,
exactly.
And that's what it would be. It would be just, he did this Niagara Falls, you're in the waterfall, and it's like... That energy.
Is that one of him, or is that Church or Cole?
They all did one,
and those are the fucking...
They're amazing, And
I love what you mentioned earlier about being, like, big.
The size,
because that's what you get for that.
And in those little things, and like he's always been like kind of regarded as if he had figures or if he didn't, and a lot of his stuff, if you were the first to be there, like that was kind of like the feeling. Some of his like discovery paintings where you were the first to get to Yosemite, it would be just no people in it. There's only these little bits of nature, then undisturbed, and that kind of like naturalist. That painting is always just kind of like been like Dinotopia was another one, and James Gurney, and that was something you were really into. James Gurney too.
Yep.
And that technical part of painting I didn't know about when I started oil painting back in Colorado, so that kind of helped me out too, because you were like, yo, there's this book about light, and oh my gosh.
So you're talking about just so we can like have people listening. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now and I don't see it, but James Gurney, Maddie actually points out something fucking good. If you don't know about him, it's called Imaginative Realism is one of the books, and
such a good book.
Yeah, that book will give you a lot of ideas. And James Gurney is an amazing artist. He did Dinotopia, like Maddie said,
and is an art teacher.
Yeah.
And he just,
his fucking.
He can do every light. He can do every style.
Yeah. What's the book called? The other one? It's
not
like
the
light
Dinotopia.
and, it's the light
The perspective one, right?
No, it's like
Light and Shade, or
Light and Shade or something like that. But get all his fucking books.
he just is
I
like
like everything that man makes.
And everything he has just has that like it's a masterful look to it, but he's not one to use a ton of, I'd say, black, you know, and like the sense of like, you know, as a tattooer, that's how you are, you know, kind of judged on your strongness or your just like dramaticness of it. Like,
Yes.
oh man,
That's a great point.
this is a masterful, like dark, like powerful piece because there's this contrast, and in the skin you are almost like limited on this palette where you have to pump contrast in a limited form. But man, Gurney has this ability, you know, with like beautiful technique to just make things so soft.
Yeah, like he has that
But-
subtle. He has a palette for the painting where you can definitely see his colors, but then those colors he'll make those colors kind of uniform throughout.
Oh, your eye is working in
Yes.
circles
Oh,
around those
man, I
paintings,
love
you
it.
know? And then you're like, I didn't know there was like these bits of green and like these little things and like every bit of the painting, you know? And he just, you know, as an artist, I mean, you see the way he's like taught, you know, and he's put like these art books out.
Yeah.
You know, that's another thing that, you know, like you kind of gave to me to like, you know, like, hey, if you're not like sure, I mean, you don't just guess on what light to put in an oil painting, and that's something that's humbling with oil painting.
Yeah.
That it's just, you know, I'm so excited that oil painting's been this, like, you know, we've both kind of like been
Yeah.
like motivated, and like
Yeah.
you've really delved into art history, and right, you know, recently I've been kind of excited that I'm more interested now on that
I know,
aspect
it's
of
important
it.
because
It's so important.
because like you know, maybe the people listening to this, a lot of the type of people even interested in this would be probably tattooers or painters of some sort. So I can say this kind of I guess to equate it to what we're talking about. If you're a fan of Sailor Jerry, or if you're a fan of like Milton Zeiss, you know, if you're
Ed
a fan,
Hardy, maybe.
yeah, or like any of those guys, like even Mike Malone, or like, you know, even modern masters that we have now. If you look at it from, if you're gonna oil paint or you're gonna do fine art, it's probably good to look back at the old masters there too.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll find out that like you're a lot like most of them. you know?
Absolutely. Well, you know, and you know, we were kind of fortunate, or you know, I'd say me being, you know, looking under your books and like having, you know, even someone like Walton Ford,
Yeah.
who there's like a quick connection, you know, I'd say right now to, you know, like Autobahn, and we could spend forever on just Autobahn, but you know, it's almost this quick connection from, you know, like he took Autobahn style, you know, and took this technical just mastery on it. And I mean, as a tattooer, you know, a tattooer can look at that and be like, oh yeah, this is awesome,
Yeah.
you know, but we don't know, you know, that he put
We
10
like the
layers.
illustrative aspect that he could draw a bird with a
but-
fucking with line as a structure.
Right.
That's what we admire about him as tattooers.
You know, but we overlook this like paragraph of script that there's a beautiful story,
Sure,
you know, and
yeah.
it's just like, oh, you know, we just want to look at the tiger because it's cool, you know, and like, you know, and that's something, you know, it's always been nice to kind of look back in the masters. That's
Yeah.
always what, you know, I didn't know, and you know, I was lucky to have someone early on. You know, you were kind of telling me about no, keep your eyes looking for stuff that maybe
Tells the
reoccurs,
story,
and
yeah.
gosh, there's so many guys that like, you know, it's unfortunate you want to help with that, and you want to be like, see this, you know, and like if you're not looking for it, maybe you don't know, but
Right, but those who are
man.
looking for it, see that you make a good point, and that's what I always loved about the old masters too. They may have given you an image that was striking right away, but then if you looked into the painting a little bit more, they rewarded you with more of what was actually happening.
Oh, and that's, you know, and I didn't know that. And then recently, kind of looking more at landscapes, these bigger ones, you know, Beardstadt, you know, these, you know, I didn't know they were 10 foot by 6 foot. You know, they would basically be these like carnival attractions where like they would encourage you to have like those binoculars or like the
Right.
little seeing glasses, and you would spend time, you'd pay a ticket,
Yeah.
and it would be examine this painting.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, gosh, that detail, that
Yeah.
masterful, like I, you know, wanted to spend that much time on, you know, doing my kind of stuff that, you know, like now I just want to like look at their artwork and be like, wow, they did it on a scale this big.
Right.
You know.
That's what I mean, and you know, you always kind of paint big. I know I paint big too, but like you always paint big, and I feel like you have that, like Walton Ford, who paints massive watercolor
Big.
paintings,
Oh,
you
that
know, of animals.
grandeur,
Yeah,
you know?
have to. If you don't know Walton Ford stuff, you have to fucking familiarize yourself with it because
Just a master
yeah, and
watercolor.
he's alive right now.
Yeah, you know, and in the body of work, you know, it's just, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
and
prolific.
the book, you know, that we have, you know, it's even from a 10-year period, you know, and it's
And he's
just
got better ones now.
he's so good. Oh man, and that's if you get a chance. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, like the couple, you know, he even puts up on, you know, like these YouTube videos where you can kind of see a video about it. It's
Yeah.
you know, and he has stories, you know, about just these, you know, old like 1800s like circus animal that got away.
Yeah,
You know, and
love
just
that
has this magical kind of like mystery to it, you know, and tattooing has been a mystery, you know, and it's had this kind of like story to it, you know, and you know, I wanted to tell a story that was the story of the honeybee, you know, and so
Right.
a lot of that kind of like naturalism storytelling bit, you know, with like Latin, you know, like that like learning
Scientific
language,
name.
yeah, giving it that purpose and that like structure, you know, I've always appreciated that, you know,
Right.
and it's
You
always
can
kind of
see that definitely what you're doing right now too.
Thank you.
Like so it's easy, and I'm not trying to cut you off, but I do want to point out that I know there's a lot of tattooers that are friends of ours who find out about Walton Ford, and then like 2 weeks later, everything looks like a Walton Ford painting, and it has allegory, and it's like got all this. And I get more excited about it. At first, I kind of laugh because I'm like, oh, I just found the Walton Ford book.
Right,
The other part of me
exactly.
goes, okay, but that's kind of cool. They're thinking
outside of
outside of just being like a straightforward, like how we think about flashy, or if we see a
Right.
dragon, we're like, okay, that's pretty dope.
But you know it's Genesis. This, you know,
Right.
it has this artistic, like, you know, there's a story about it.
There's
and
a
you're like,
language in it.
Maybe they can take this and maybe they're knowing what they're seeing, or maybe they're reading the back of the book and kind
Yeah.
of saying, oh, all these have stories, you know, and that was something, you know, we flipped through that book together after we got it. And I
Yeah.
mean, you know, having this,
blown.
like, you know, just page by page, you know, and if you just haven't seen it, please, you know, and it kind of stems from an earlier Audubon and his story, like the Hudson River Valley. You know,
Yeah.
it's like they had this amazing, you know, you talk about Renaissance man, you know,
That was
and
the
so
American Renaissance.
they
pretty
just these were men that, you know, they literally went out, hunted these animals because they were the first to see them, you know, and you know, today they've kind of gotten scrutiny about,
Yeah.
you know, maybe getting a couple too many, but gosh, you know, you think about discovery and just, I mean, you go to another country with these birds of, you know, paradise. I mean, they're just treasures, you know,
Right.
and like, I mean, they said like some of these landscape paintings of like places from the Rocky Mountains in Europe, you know, Bierstadt, he kind of grew out of favor, you know, he kind of got this older taste
Yeah,
where
that's true.
the modernism, oh my gosh, they were like, we know what Native American art looks like. We know what buffalo in the mountains look like. So towards the end of his life, only Europe appreciated it.
Yes.
And it was this richness of,
And that was because he was showing American birds, a lot of which Europeans had never seen.
Right.
So the way he drew them, you know, he wasn't even trying to be a fucking artist. He was just trying to document them.
Right.
And he used art as the medium.
And they, you know, he was too dramatic. You know, he used,
Yes.
you know, poses that were, say, you know, too like flamboyant. You know, or
Yes. And that was because he was tacking them to the wall, and he just
Right.
decided, like, yeah, I'm gonna do it like this.
yeah, you know,
But we do that
oh.
in tattooing too.
And-
you know, look at an eagle tattoo nowadays.
You know, nowadays, yeah, it's like, you know, I want it to be, you know, of course, in a artistic expression, but I've always loved that, you know, not, you know, you have to have that stiffness of being pinned to a, you know, a board, but I do love that, like, every detail of a feather because, you know,
Yeah.
you've kind of like,
Great movement.
you're right there on it, you know, and I want to be able to say I've seen it because I've seen that painting. And then when I go out to nature, there's that connection and that, like, you know, even when you're looking at a guidebook, there's like that kind of old timey, like,
Yes.
I want to go look at go out in nature.
and you know
maybe
that they had seen it,
they'd seen that
but
bird.
probably
man.
from far enough that it made a wonky drawing.
Right, and so, you know, I understand that, you know, and you know, with hummingbirds, you know that they're kind of infamous with, you know, the gum traps, you know, and you know,
Okay.
I get to see hummingbirds up at, you know, the mountains.
Yeah, so
all the
let's talk
time.
about that. Let's talk about that. So you, we'll take a we'll divert a little bit from painting and talk about how. So now you've been a tattooer for a little while. Now you've been a painter, and what you end up coming to is you after you move back to Colorado, you go down to Beulah, Colorado.
Beulah, Colorado.
Okay,
yeah.
and that's where your cabin is now.
Yeah, so, you know, the family, you know, that was always, you know, the weekend retreat. You know, we had this, like, you know, beautiful area up in Beulah. You know, it's this, you know, pine forest with, it's got oak, scrub oak and Douglas fir. It's like red soil, that like really rich like red kind of dirt that kind of stains. You know what I mean? It's just the most like muddy. You know, and it's
that North Carolina.
it is just such a beautiful area though. You know, and something that I kind of came back to, in this land that my dad. He's at that point now where he needs help. Kind of taking care of it.
Yeah.
So I was able to move back and kind of spend more time there, and kind of turn it into this like.
So describe this area.
It's like a 40-acre like kind of like ranch area. It's like not overly pined area. It's got beetle kill and like the scrub oak, and there's drought. And so the land it needs love. And you need to kind of like trim it and kind of like fire litigation. It needs this love to it. And so it's kind of been this like magnetism to it, and I worked at a shop called Magnetic, and so that word's
I've heard of that shop.
Oh, that word's always like driven me, and so like nature's always been like on the weekend, all right, I gotta go up to the mountains, and like put my hands in the earth, and kind of spend some time, like going back, with the family and kind of building that family like homestead, and that's something.
It's very Colorado.
Oh, it's definitely the same drive that I used to make up to Magnetic.
Yep.
And now I'm doing it from Denver to and it's this bond that I love getting to be close to the land, but I love being in Denver, but it's just this magnetism to nature. You
still have Wi-Fi there, right?
Oh, and that's the thing, that's
what's fucking amazing.
It's got paved road all the way there. There's a hot tub and
Jesus
like a deck that
I'm gonna come visit you there this fucking summer.
Please, I'll drive you myself.
All right, fucking you come pick me up, and then we'll go down.
Do this just like that. Yeah.
No, me and Linz will go down.
You're welcome anytime.
Yeah. So you decided to go up to Beulah, and what? So was this your dad's cabin already?
Yeah, it was like growing up. I mean, it was just the land, and then we, just had the foundation, and then it turned into, like a cabin without plumbing, and one step at a time. My dad just, as an electrician, job by job, he'd get a little bit, he'd squirrel away, and he'd be like, okay, now we can put, the doors on.
Yeah.
Now we can build the deck, and this land is now, kind of at this point where, I hope to kind of take over some of the more, responsibilities and kind of, be that like.
You do, and like on your Instagram stories, which is funny because here you are out in the middle of nature, but I still love to see it. I live vicariously through you when you're up there. Like you'll see you'll be doing some like vegetable farming. Pulling vegetables. Or,
and staying in the deck, and doing things, sandy and
shit.
Things that need to be done, and it's something that, as like a grown adult, I get to work in a shop that's, air conditioned and just beautiful and just pristine, in the weekend, maybe just get that like that that not rage out, but just the like the energy that maybe like a good.
After watching your Broncos lose so often,
oh dude, they're just
you're
giving me no hope with this quarterback, man. He's like a shell of this Viking guy. Like, thank God we got Joe Flacco, but are you kidding me? Like, you telling me this is a solution? We're in the AFC West. You're giving me the third best quarterback now. Like, maybe better than Derek Carr. So.
This is what happens when you talk to these guys in Colorado about the Broncos.
Bro, we will talk
Us Patriots fans,
they're just over here with their gold medals and their fucking rings. Yeah, they're just like, what is problems? Like, we don't know what that means.
No, but you go up to Beulah and or down to Beulah.
So yeah, southern Colorado, and also the bees.
So that's what I was gonna say though. So so you're up there in your farm and you're helping your dad.
And then that idea of like, man, if I could have, I can't really do livestock like and like have cattle because my dad, he's too old,
Yeah,
so
you got to work during the week, so
yeah. So I thought, how could I have some kind of like thing that helps the land, something that like benefits, that I can do from Denver. And beekeeping kind of was this idea that like, oh, what's this, and I had no idea about it, and it kind of came into this blind idea, and then just kind of kept coming up, and then it just became this like, let's have bees at the cabin, and just see what happens.
So like that's what's crazy though, is who the fuck goes. Like, I've known you for a while, and I've met you when you were like, you were a guy who was into tattooing,
right,
and you were into music, but all of a sudden you became more of a musician and more of an artist, And then next thing you know, you were somebody who added another layer.
Yeah, just kind of a new interest.
So, but like beekeeping,
where did it come from? Right?
Like I understood when you said I'm gonna be an oil painter, Shawn, and I was like, yeah, we fucking talked about that. That makes perfect sense. Like you want to paint Lord of the Rings shit. I get it, bro. But like when you got into beekeeping, I was kind of like, this makes fucking perfect sense, and this looks right on you. But it also didn't. I didn't quite understand like. Okay, so like I know we have a bee problem in this world, and we need to preserve as many bees as we can. But I know it's kind of not an easy undertaking. I know it can be an expensive undertaking too.
And I think it even started from maybe a little bit of gardening too. And that was something. Not that we didn't have great success, but you hear like, oh man, if you have bees, maybe you're gonna have better farming, or like that's something that maybe just try it out. And so like you're saying, I mean, it's something that it's weird, or it's something that's it's not expensive or cheap necessarily, but yeah, it's like something like where does that kind of like where do you put them, or like the knowledge, like it's weird, and my mom is one of those ladies that she kind of says stuff to people that puts you in these like spots where she actually met a beekeeper and was like, oh, my son heard about this one thing, and
he watches The Office.
Dude, totally set me up for this, like meeting with the beekeeper, and was like, oh, he's interested in bees, and then like turned it into like he wants to buy beehives, and so it was like, oh, I'm buying beehives now. And so I mean, my mom is the best lady, and I think for me, it's like awesome. Trial by fire, and but like I said, even with tattooing, that humbling experience of not being prepared. And the first thing I looked at is like these are your pets, these are your babies, and like you're saying, I mean, you're leaving these at the cabin, 2 hours away roughly, but you want to protect them, you want to make sure they've got the food, they've got the water, they've got like adequate protection from anything.
So and what you go out and you inherit. What is it? 2 hives? Is that
you buy them, as like a colony, Okay. Yeah, you buy these hives,
and so as a hive is a queen in each one.
Right.
Okay.
And what I did, I bought them like ready to go. He, put them, from the ground on a pickup truck and was like, there you go.
Fuck off.
Yeah, basically, dude. And I mean,
fucking bees now.
I'm there with my bee class, so I got the bees on a Saturday. My bee class was on like the next Saturday, dude. So like he's basically like, just drop them off. Make sure they're on a couple like cinder blocks. You're fine. Yeah. Take your class. You'll be fine. And I mean, you take a couple classes, Shawn, kind of like oil painting.
Right.
I took a beekeeping 101. Then the next year I took intermediate. And it's like from the first year, how to do from the first year on.
Okay.
And I tell people that and that there's a place that I learned 15 minutes from where I live. And so. A little bit of that.
That's good that that's there.
Yeah, it's a shop called To Be or Not to Be. David Baker.
I love it.
Oh, I love it. David Baker.
That's like straight hairstylist style naming too.
It's so funny.
It's like, you know what? Let's go punny.
And dude, they've got great family, company, and I've learned a lot of great things, Yeah. And with beekeepers, it's even like with tattooers, opinions and just these people that you go in there and they're like, oh, you do, what's your deal, and you start talking, and I mean,
they're like, you opening up a new fucking bee joint,
right? Oh, how are you doing your hives?
Yeah.
You doing this? And
that's crazy that there's this whole little world of
it's a whole world
beekeeping. The tack game is this whole thing, and then who knew that there's a whole beekeeping world?
And then like how you're taking care of them is like how do you do it? How do you keep them, and which ways? And
right,
and then
And do you care for not to cut you short on that, but like, do you care for a certain type of honeybee?
Like what you'll get usually typically is just a breed that's either shipped here or it's already it's usually Italian or Canolian, which is just
Canolian,
yeah, or Russian.
Okay.
There's like a couple species.
I'm just picturing these bees with Italian accents.
Oh, it's so funny. And
we're gonna make it a honey. We're like a little basil.
Man, we're hard to work, cause I swear the Russians are meaner, and like and
the
like
Russians come in and just the secrets.
They've got this cleanliness about them, and like any beekeeper they're totally laughing because that's a pun, because that's a thing right now. Russian bees. I'm gonna get my first Russian bees this year. Mm-hmm. It's a special type of hive because there's a pest called varroa that'll be in the show. But, you know, it's this really big issue in beekeeping. And the only, you know, places that don't have this varroa mite are islands. And that's the only place that independent, like, feral bees are still alive.
Whoa.
And a lot of people don't know that. You know, it's stuff that...
Like where?
I mean, you know, Australia was the last place that native bees, you know, like, just, you know, where you'd see a beehive in a tree.
Okay.
You don't see that in America anymore.
Whoa.
That's gone.
Whoa.
Varroa mite took that away.
That's fucking crazy.
And recently, too, in 1986 is with the first case of Varroa in North America. And it didn't even really come around.
Register.
And it went all the way through America before we could do anything about it.
Shit.
So with the colony...
It's like bee AIDS.
Dude, it was bad, you know. And so, you know, New Zealand was like a really... Like, I don't know if they have it, you know, but it's like Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah.
Some of those, like, last islands. But they have, like, you know, like, almost like islands where, like, you know, they'll keep species, like, separated.
Mm-hmm.
They do that with bees, too.
Okay.
That way they keep the genetics pure, because otherwise...
Isolation.
Because right now, what you get in California, they'll just mate the same queen thousands of times. And it's the same genetics, just over and over and over. Like with what we're doing with crops.
Dude,
where like it's the same corn, and it's the same, you know, it's susceptible to the same virus, though. So these mites, you know, maybe they're, you know, just not really getting a better mite-resistant queen.
Right.
It's the same queen, so we're not helping this mite problem.
We're just we're just trying to maintain what we have for now.
Right. And then
that's kind of scary, considering, because if that's where we're at with that,
and the way the
probably not
mites
doing a good
are,
job.
you know, anybody who doesn't, like, say, take care of their mites, it gets spread to people, you know, that do take care of them without any type of, you know, I mean, a mite is something that'll jump off of a bee, jump onto a different bee on a flower, you know, and so if you do everything right and someone next to you doesn't, it's something like a vaccination, you know. It's like, if we're not all doing it.
So what basically you're saying,
you're just spreading it all over the country.
It's going to happen anyway, probably.
Right. Because pollination, and that's another thing people don't know, you know, throughout the year, you know, bees get shipped from California to Florida, and those mites and all that issue, I mean, it gets shipped throughout the whole country, you know. And, you know, those issues, you know, it's something that it's not going to get changed, because we need that pollination. And it's only in a calendar year specific, you know, where in some months, you know, almonds right now in California are almost done, you know, or I think they might be done already. But for 6 weeks, every beehive in the entire country is in California. Like, there's millions of beehives in California, because almonds are 100% dependent on bees. Yeah. And without them,
I didn't know that.
And we ship, I think it's 90% of the world's, like, almonds. Like, we're I think we do 95% of the world's almonds in California, though. So we've, like, really overdone it with almond trees, because they're really, like, they take a lot of water. And so we're droughting out these areas.
Oh, it's fucking almond milk.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I'm saying.
There isn't that much in almond
These
milk.
vegans and their almond milk.
Oh, shit.
I'm joking.
Oh, shit.
I did not say that. I love vegans, no. You know what? But vegans will kind of give beekeepers a hard time.
I know that you've had some.
It's a tricky one.
What's funny is I've seen you post stuff.
Oh,
and then I've like heard you talk about it, but also I've seen like a comment, and I've seen you reply to people before.
Oh, I'll go the distance. I love it.
It's weird though, because I agree. I noticed that there's certain people who get upset about this.
There's a line, you know, and
and what do they want you to do? Do you think that you have to do the work that you're doing? I know you gave into this through your mom, and I know you gave into this so that you could actually, like, you do it for an interest, but now that you've kind of taken it up as sort of it's like you have to,
like, a passion,
responsibility,
right?
Almost.
You know, the ultimate goal, you know. And like I would tell you, so the bees every year, they're gonna work the way they're just designed to, and what they do is they build to an excess no matter what. And so as a beekeeper, it'll rot, literally not be used if you don't take care of it, you know. And so what you do is you give them a new box every year to do the job that they need to do. And bees, you know, like, that's their natural inclination. So, you know, when you hear this, like, you're taking the food that they need, it's just misinformation, you know. And so much of that is like, you know, like, these beekeepers aren't like good publicists, you know. They're like guys in white suits that look crazy. Nobody wants to get stung by bees. So that information, you know, people are like, I like honey, but people don't know, like, a regular, like, jar versus, like, rice honey, you know what I mean, on the street, you know. And it's crazy. Like, there's such a difference, you know. But
this is like this does have on so many levels, we do not understand bees. I feel like,
right,
because everything you're telling me, and I consider myself a pretty learned person. I consider myself to be a researcher.
You're a Renaissance man, Sean,
right,
for sure.
But like at the same time, right? Like I don't know any of this about bees, and everything you're telling me, it sounds like apocalyptic. Almost.
It's very important, you know.
Yeah.
And with pollination, you know, that's the thing with vegans. Like they're super dependent on pollination. And that's what I would tell people, like, man, if you're a vegan, gosh, you do all your own vegetable gardening. Wouldn't it be smart to have bees? And then that would be something that you're seeing who's pollinating your garden, you know? And that's just something, you know, you get these really just narrow-minded people that, like what you're saying, I mean, like the knowledge, and like I feel like whenever you start learning about something, the knowledge field just opens up.
Right.
And like I feel like what you're saying, like the ultimate goal too, you know, just to like, maybe not have my own brand of bee, but up at the cabin, it's this isolated area, Sean. And then when you hear about beekeeping with these bad neighbors, I will be able to have, you know, if I can treat my bees down to no mites and have a strain that lasts the winter, and then I can keep that breed and breed my own queen that's a Colorado bee that handles Beulah, I've done my job to help a native pollination.
Yes,
that's like... And in my dad's cabin, you know, it's like 50 acres that they go 5 miles. So it'll be this touch of my, you know, shire, my ultimate, like, you know, it's this ultimate. I go there, you know, and I drive up there, and it's this, you know, return to like, you know, the old time.
I know you love it.
Oh, like, it's
most not to cut you off, but most people fucking want that. You know, they're searching for this dream, but you actually found a way to have this, to be able to like
imagine
escape.
Yeah, kind of like in the weekend, like create a little like adventure every weekend.
That's fucking
and with the
essential.
show, you know, like get into the world, you know, and be like, oh my gosh, like the stresses these things are like. I didn't even know they had to worry about skunks or, you know, I mean, obviously bears, but I had bears hit, man.
Yeah.
And at the cabin, you know, what better, like, I mean, the reference that you're seeing these bears, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I gotta like tell other people.
Say the name of the archer again for me.
Apis eminens.
Okay, so what your kind of goal and your premise behind that? What was that?
You know, like I said, with the, you know, threat of all these little things with bees, you know, there's, you know, things we can do.
But not just little things. Like some of them are bears.
Some of them are real big, yeah. And, you know, with all the threats that kind of get magnified when you put them together. Mm-hmm. And I thought of a show, you know, you could put all of the pieces together and kind of like maybe, you know, in a little bit of an educational way, but not even, just kind of like just show them for what they are.
Right.
These predators, these, you know, these birds that are, you know, hundreds of times bigger, you know, a bear that's thousands of times bigger, you know, just something that, how can a bee, you know, when a badger, like, literally has these double-lidded eyelids, you know, it's getting stung in the eye, and it doesn't even care. It's just eating, like, their whole colony.
They're just, like,
it's
getting that sugar.
Like, it sounds like out of a scary, like, Mike Myers, like, you can't do anything about it, and so that imminent threat, you know, and this, like, protection that, you know, you want to have this almost like, you know, extra care for these like sweet, you know, in my opinion, sweet little, you know, honeybees.
Yeah, I know, but it's funny because you have a bee and then you have the association with like wasps and you know, hornets
every time.
And people think they're the same thing. So people are, you know, bees, from everything I've learned from you and about your approach to this art show that you're doing, everything has been, this is everything that a bee is up against, which is like so fucking many things if you think about it. It's persevered through, you know, all these different millennia, but at the same time, I think what you're doing is noble work because you're showing everything from, you know, give us an example. Like right now, we're actually looking at a painting by, you know, and this is what, oils?
This is an oil, yeah.
Okay, so this painting by Maddie is like,
Varroa Destructor. I mean, it is, the scariest one we're facing right now. You know, as a beekeeper, it's tiny, you know, and it's something, you know, my first year, I didn't even see it in the hive, you know, and like, you have these, like, you know, strips that you kind of open up and you can see hundreds of them, you know, when you're really knowing what to look for. Whoa. And at that point, you get to 300 per, you know, it's like a certain amount, and the hive's dead, and it doesn't even know it, you know, and it's something, like I said, you know, if you're treating and the other people around you aren't,
Right.
it just doesn't matter.
Risk, yeah.
This risk just gets worse and worse, you know. So for that one, it's this tiny little mite, and I thought, man, if I could blow it up and just give it this,
Yeah, because
like,
this painting is what, 18 by 24?
18 by 24,
Okay.
you know, and a mite, I mean, I would tell you, like, you know, it fits, you know, on a bee, and it sucks on its blood, and it puts viruses. It'll actually, you know, give it this, you know, virus that bends its wing, and it'll have a deformed wing, and so it won't even fly.
And as we're looking at this painting, there's like, you've painted this very huge, you'd call it a mite, right?
It's a mite, yeah.
Okay, so it's a painting of like an 18 by 24 painting, and I know this is audio and not visual, but you get to see it if you come to the fucking show. but in this painting, we're looking at something that's like very ovular, you know, and it has like all these furry legs on it, and on this painting, it's an oil painting, and it shows everything like zoomed in, like it's really
just coming at you,
yeah,
you know, and like it has
menacing.
these, you know, it grabs on, and it, like, you know, it holds on, and it's like this, you know, the bees have these micro hairs everywhere, you know, and so imagine just like something stuck in this, you know, like
Tiny
almost
little hair.
all these hairs, and like, you know, a Russian bee, that's one of these breeds that they're a more hygienic bee. And what they do is they clean each other a little bit more, and so they're a little bit more varroa resistant. And so that's what, you know, better beekeeping, the more naturalistic way is to take strains that are more resistant to this
so
strain.
you're introducing the Russian bee into
Right,
America.
into America, because the Italians, you know, like, then that's one of my paintings. It's this, you know, thing that was brought here, you know, beekeeping, you know, I tell people it's not a North American species. You know, the honeybee is from, you know, Europe.
So there's no indigenous honeybees.
That's what, you know, we brought them here
recently.
Yeah. Right, you know, and so
That's crazy.
The colonists, I mean, they were producing, you know, tons of beeswax, shipping it back, you know, just years after they brought them here. So they were super successful, you know, and they traveled all the way to the coast without, you know, needing us to help it. And so, you know, now, like I said, you know, there's not really any more feral bees because of something like this, you know,
Right.
mite that just so quickly, without knowing it happened, you know, and it's something so small, you know, that's why this painting, you know, to show something that...
Yeah, because it's menacing. It looks like some shit out of Starship Troopers.
Oh, the way in it, you know, I mean, you can only imagine, you know, it sits, you know, in their cell, and as they're growing to be a bee, it can gestate quicker than a bee. So by the time one bee is born,
Right.
it can have
winter
2 or
cycles.
3, depending if it's a male or female. So, you know, it's just this problem that, man, you know, in a quick couple months, you know, and you treat your bees twice a year for this problem.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, you know, more, and it's something that, man, you know, I really wanted to focus on this one. So this one, in oil, I wanted to give it a classic, just like, it hasn't been around that long, but this one is like just a really dramatic, like, really menacing kind of, like, you know, problem that, you know,
you've basically taken its number one enemy, and because it's such a tiny little enemy, it's this, you know, on this painting too, to have you guys know, there's actual little tiny...
I took varroa, you know, from a hive that, you know, every hive has varroa, you know, so to say, I don't have any varroa mite, you know, no beekeeper is going to tell you that. So, you know, I took, you know, like, you know, from, you know, like a little toothpick, you know, searching this hive, you know, for, you know, hour, you know, to get these little mites, and I wanted to just put that touch in there to
You're
have
a
this,
maniac.
to put this infested problem, you know, into this painting, just to kind of show that extra, like, whoa, oh, is there like this little stain on the painting, and then like, oh no, there's a texture, and then be like, oh my god, there's
actual mites on there.
You know,
and I love all the drop shadows too. All the drop shadows you put under the legs. It looks so fucking real.
I try to give it that, you know, just coming right off the, you know, like almost textured. Like, just don't want this thing around, and it's one that, you know, it's
a bad guy for sure.
Just, you know, there's the obvious ones, you know, obviously, oh man, wasps are gonna be, you know, evil looking, but man, this thing, you know, a little kind of oval, you know, unsuspecting, you know, just insect, the mite, you know, it was hard to illustrate it without being like,
without getting that scale,
that size. It helped it, you know, and I think,
I love,
you know,
how macro you got on it. You know?
And it was different for me, you know. It's something that, you know, a landscape is, I mean, completely different, and so, you know, I liked that this show, you know, even with tattooing, how I've been kind of focusing maybe a little bit more, micro or just kind of that like super mac, just get that tiny detail.
And I love the script on there too. I love dude, it's you put all the elements of field journal,
that like descriptive and just that like you want to look to the corner and be like, oh, is that, what species is that? And then like,
and it's really smart because the way you did it, it's not just, it doesn't just look like handwriting, which is what we usually associate. It looks like some pencil notes next to a watercolor painting. In this case, it looks like you've gone to some trouble to put an actual like nice, it's artistic in its own.
it was sitting there almost as a tattoo,
Right.
with this script liner brush that a lot of oil painting, we've kind of gotten into this, use big brushes that are just big fields, and with oil painting there are some times when you use that liner, and it's almost not just like a tattoo, but with script, it's kind of this like, I like to kind of like, oh man, this is almost like a tattoo right now, and that was like a painting within a painting,
Right.
Nailing that lettering, and it kind of gave it that that final touch, like you're saying, that field note. I've always loved that.
Me too. And you did it like Walton Ford, the Autobahns.
Love that Autobahn.
Yeah. And you have it where it doesn't distract from the painting at all either.
Right, the right size, like not the, like over the top, just kind of in the corner, just.
And it gives you like what the name of it is fucking badass
Dude,
too.
the best Latin.
What is it
name,
again?
Varroa Destructor.
Dude,
Like,
that sounds like a fucking one of Jack Black's songs.
can you imagine a more scary thing than Destructor?
Destructor.
Like, it
sounds
so
like
cool.
fucking like that's a perfect black metal name too.
Oh man.
Say it again.
Varroa Destructor,
Dude, seriously. Put some umlauts on that fucking thing.
Right, and that's what kind of like
If
spawned
you ever start another band,
oh,
call it that shit.
I'm into that. Umlaut on both of them.
But it's cool. It's all hairy and fucking.
Oh yeah, the amount of like, they just got these like pincers that just kind of grab, and it's just sometimes you see them and
What do they do exactly to the bee?
What they'll do is like they sit on their fat cells on like the sides, and like they suck their blood, and like they'll transmit disease.
Terrifying.
So they're just awful, it'd be like the scale. Say it'd be like a waffle, like on our shoulder, like sucking blood all day.
What in the fuck?
Yeah, or like like a rabbit on your neck sucking blood, like the size, comparative. So for them, it's small, tiny for us, but for them, it's still like, oh my god. But
it probably.
But if it's on their side, like behind their leg,
they can't
get to it, and so they need another bee to be hygienic, to be able to help them clean it, and so. Or you treat for them, and there's, ways to do that,
but then you risk probably contaminating honey
and that's a thing, yeah. And people just don't want to put stuff like that. It's brutal. You smell this stuff, and it'll knock you over. But it's something that's based from nature. It's actually, so formic acid is what's in an ant sting. And so it's a totally normal like thing that is, it's actually in honey. Formic acid's in honey, so like you can treat with this particular thing that I use for these mites. So there are ways that are more green or just not as like
harmful.
You're not just
especially
pumping.
for any kind of cellular problems.
Right, you're putting something that's based in their like DNA to deal with, and then you have to deal with ants in a way that is just a pest too. Ants smell the sweetness from honey. That's another pest you have to deal with, and at least it's something that can help against.
So you have
mites.
you have these mites,
and you have ants.
Fucking ants.
Oh yeah,
So give me some more. Run down some more of those.
I've trapped just my personal self. 2 different skunks in my backyard.
Right.
In Denver.
I remember you telling me about this.
It's just they'll smell it, and like at night they'll just come up to the hive, they'll scratch the hive, and any guard bee. They'll be alerted, they'll go right out, and the skunk's ready to just shovel them right in their mouth.
Whoa.
And so, they'll come back. They'll just shovel bees right in their mouth.
Why do they want to eat the bees?
Because the protein. It's just like,
shit. So they don't care? It just stings them?
They're just in their mouth. Yeah. And that's the thing, there's rodents that don't care, so same thing with like...
They've been dealt with for millions of years. Evolving.
Yeah, and that's, you feel bad, you don't want to like bring them to an area where that's like infested with bears, without having... this protection, and that was something I had too. The cabin, we ended up putting an electric fence, and so my protection's been a little bit better, but I did have maybe not quite sufficient, protection originally.
Yeah.
And, and I did, bears.
So that's what led the skunks and the bears?
The bears, this was up in the cabin. The skunks were actually, in Denver. So it's kind of funny. The skunks are in a more, suburb area, like, middle of Denver, and you would never think, like,
You'd have to deal with that.
and not much you can do but trap them.
So that was at your old apartment.
Right, and I lived in Westwood, Denver, an area called Westwood, and that's where the company, the beekeeping name, and I would go, to the woods, and I'm from Pueblo West, and I've always thought, pioneers going west, and like that, like West has always been something that stuck with me.
Yeah.
So Westwood, living there started this idea of Westwood honey.
Right.
And it kind of all spawned from there, and so, even the bear.
I like the name Westwood honey, and I like the trouble you went to with your labels. Like, I like that it has that illustrative aspect to it.
Oh, thank you.
And then you gave us honey, and we made the best sopapillas. We made fucking.
Oh, dude. I mean,
everything.
As a dessert, and, not to, you always try to think, man, my honey's good. That honey's good, or you pick a favorite. But
right.
I really think that I've been fortunate. I'm in an area that has a lot of like sweeter, like very like light flowered areas, and my honey's really sweet. So like you're saying, like for a sopapilla, oh my god, it's like this
delicious.
It's got these like floral, almost like kind of like almost fruit notes that I get, compliments like this is really a dessert type of honey versus some honeys.
Have like 4 different types of honeys.
Right. And,
So do you still have only 4 types of honeys? And I don't say only because.
Well, no, and that's.
I don't got no honeys, man. You know what I'm
saying? And what I would tell you, everywhere you keep your hives, you'll get a different honey. Okay. And so it's almost more painstaking to do it. What, a grand scale honey scale would do? They just blend them all together.
No shit.
And you just get this. One colored that
it's a
honey
symphony
color.
Of all of them.
Right, and I mean, you got 10,000 hives, I get it. But, I've got, 2 hives here, 6 hives here,
right.
A couple hives here. It's in these small enough batches.
And if you have these different flavors and all these different colors, because I noticed, like, there's vastly different colors. Like, some is very brown, and then some of them is more like a champagne color.
Right.
And I noticed, like, if you're doing that, how different is the flavor?
It'll change completely by the season, That's early in the season, the fruit blossom, a lot of it's white, like that pale pink. And so your honey is almost clear. It's just like really sweet, just like rich, like clear honey. And if you pull it early, that's what it looks like. Whoa. Sunflowers by the summer, it's like that darker, like that yellow pollen.
Oh.
Goldenrod is like that dark, like fall honey, buckwheat. You think of those kind of like.
This makes way fucking much sense. Dude.
And it's something.
All probably
asters in the fall. Like they know what they're getting. And bees will systematically, like they're getting one source at a time, and they're exhausting it, and like it's really smart because then they're always having something to. Hopefully have
consistent.
Throughout the season.
Right.
We have sometimes not the best climate here. Colorado. Unfortunately, our winters are like. Dry or they're up or down. My bees were out, 3 days ago because it was 60 degrees at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
And then right now it's snowing, So, they've gone out, which is good, and they've gone out and done the bathroom. Bees will have this problem called dysentery. That's one issue. It's a whole nother, it's just a...
It's another thing.
It's just, it's just, having your waste inside in your home.
Oh, yeah.
So they have to go out every few days. But if it's snowing for 2 months, if you're in Massachusetts, you're in Canada, you're in, Iceland, as a beekeeper, you have dysentery issues you have to worry about. So beekeeping...
So is there a way to combat that?
You could treat for it, it's just something... And bees, like they know what they're doing, sometimes they have the perfect window where they can kind of, go out. And even Colorado, I'll be like, man, it's January and it's this perfect 50 degrees. They'll go out and... do it, real quick and kind of, it's
That's
so
funny.
One of my paintings is this, flapping of the wings. They have to maintain this temperature inside, and all winter long, in Colorado, we lose hives because of, the coldness here.
Give me that painting you got right there. Maddie's holding up a painting, and, you'll be able to see it soon enough, but in this painting, it's probably one of the more photorealistic paintings you did for it.
For the show, for sure.
It's it would be hard to describe, but it's basically a bee that's in a hive.
Yeah, just in the entrance, and what they do is, like that's the regulator, that's the front door, and so, in a colony, they can overheat, and so sometimes it can be to cool it down, and they're just like,
wow, that's crazy. So they cool the hive off.
Cool it down. Oh, in the summer, it's too hot, and they're just all on the outside, and they're like too many guys in a big party, in the room. But right now, he's like, it's cold. I gotta like heat it up a little bit. So, in the winter, right now we're kind of like, oh man, it's like we get 2 more months of like up and down. And with the bloom, that's something we just had silver maple. That's the first of the year, Shawn. And so, beekeeping kind of has this calendar, and it's starting now, but we can get kind of screwed and get this 2-week cold spell, right when we start getting flowers, and then you don't have flowers for 2 weeks, and so then beekeepers will have to supplemental feed or keep their bees strong that had started to build up their colony and laid all these eggs. And then there's nothing for them to do, or so it gets so cold, you have brood loss, and it's just something. We're in a good spot, because I think Pueblo and my mom,
warmer down there.
She has a lot of my bees too, and I love that my mom has just always been supportive, and she's like, keep as many bees, and I've loved that ecosystem's just a little bit warmer. It's not quite perfect, but it's definitely been good. I've had good success so far.
Yeah, and this painting, I love this painting. The colors are amazing in it. I can tell you haven't completely glazed it over yet because it doesn't have that like
I just
top coat.
Always and I don't have a lot of critiques or people I can kind of get a a good like, hey, just give me a little suggestion. So I had to give give me a little 2 cents on it.
Yeah, Shawn, no, man, you're already there. In this painting, it's great though. It's like the color of the hive right here. It's like a wood, right?
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like it's got like chipped away, and it's like all these greens and all this worn away wood, and it just has fucking tone wise. And then in the wings you gave a little bit. There's like this, and there's the slightest purple in there.
That
just warms. It's a beautiful painting. This is one of my favorite paintings you've done yet.
Thank you.
Yep.
And with that, like the the legs and like the little, you think of like how many thousands of like in and out, like the way we would wear. Paint out, if you're just like constantly walking, say on like the walls, and so
it's got that lived in look.
Oh, like these little scrapes from, millions of times they've kind of in and out,
George
in
Lucas
and out.
world stuff going on.
Lived in, and that's that naturalist, like, I didn't want to do a brand new, like, just to be on a brand new beehive, it's like that stuff doesn't appeal to me all the time, it's like,
you're giving it history.
This is a, oh my gosh, he's doing his job, he's been doing it for a minute.
These are generations of bees.
And that's what, a bee most times lives for 6 weeks, and this job is one of their last jobs before they start to go forage. Guard bees is like one of their last house bee jobs, and then, they spend the second half of their life getting pollen, and then the last 3 weeks until their wings fail, until they have cracks and the wind breaks their wings, or they'll snatch into a twig and they break their wings. They will fly until they die.
So what happens? The wing is brittle. They fall to the earth.
They just can't fly anymore.
Okay, then what do they do?
Or they just die of old age, or what they do is they don't die in the hive because they know they're like a poison. Yeah, so they'll die right outside the hive. It's so sad, and that's a good thing. You want to see
they're that intuitive.
They're amazing. They drag out their dead. Whenever it's I don't want to say it all crazy, but whenever it's.
What is your impression of it?
I think they're just genius. They're just. Just such a like you think of like how do they know, when to do the things that they do, and they build these colonies from, you start these nucleus, and I love that, it's like this term that beekeepers call nukes, and you start your nukes in the spring, and then, by the end of the fall, 60,000 colonies strong, like, you can hear this roar at the end, of like this day that they've just, worked their, tails off all day, and it's just like, they're all just calm, and you can hear this like just little flutter of just, and it's just the most.
It's beautiful.
Oh, and you keep a couple hives next to each other, and like they know from 3 feet, if you paint them exactly the same, they'll still figure it out. But each hive, and when you go, you think back, you're like, man, I remember seeing hives that are all different colored, and that old childhood memory of seeing like beehives on the highway up to Beulah.
Right.
That was one of my childhood memories, and it just always, I think comes back to me. And so, that's, the kind of another thing that keeps, coming back with beekeeping. And
well, you I like that traditionalist thinking that you have. You do traditional tattoos. Your paintings are definitely a revival of traditionalist field journal study, like scientific study of things. And even the way you're approaching some of this photorealism, this is some of the finest painting you've done yet. And I still see that there's elements of illustration in there too, especially the way you handle the legs and on the bees.
Right.
And what I think though with you is your passion for this, for communicating what is going on in the bee world. You're understanding that sometimes people are going to think fucking talking about bees might be boring or might be a futile effort too, because they could be like, well, if this is the end. But I think what you're doing is you're kind of showing all of these different threats. You're showing that this could very much be, this is one aspect of what could be problematic for a bee. I also want to say, sidebar for a minute, when I look at the one with the mites over there, I have fucking acid flashbacks, so they all look like they're moving for a minute. It's fucking crazy.
Dude, and I didn't even think of that idea. And it's just something that, like, I think it grips you a little bit more when you can just, like, you don't notice it right away.
Right.
And sometimes with oil, that's something that, man, like, you just really don't think about some stuff until you're, like, you say acid trip, but man, I think, you can really just spend time, like you're saying, those old masters, like there's so much to absorb, and then like, I was like, oh man, like, and I started with like, what if I put one, like right by the name, you kind of said like, it's something you don't really notice, but I was like, no, I want people to eventually be like, this is like a beehive that eventually gets swarmed with these, and you're infested, and then you're like, oh, this is covered in them, and this is like, oh, did I get too close? They're not alive, are they? And they're just, are they glazed on them, or like these coming off the painting?
They do.
Like,
They look like they're moving.
They're just disgusting. And
well, so I don't want you to get too much away too, because these things are something to behold. I mean, from every texture, I think that you've looked and thought about, and you found the connection to how can the tone of your colors, do they convey the mood? I think that you've thought about all of that stuff thoroughly. And I see like, in all these paintings that you've done, whether they're watercolor paintings and there's elements of what you've learned in tattooing, whether it be like thin lines and then like a little bit of color, or you going photorealistic as some of these paintings look. I think you found all this like, okay, I love bears, I love fucking skunks, not, you don't love fucking skunks, but but like you have
nature,
all this, you have all this nature, and this seems, some people when they try to go after this, they're not looking at it, they're not going to all the trouble to discover what these are about. It looks like you're very much like, you're the kind of person who this is appropriate for. This looks very right on you. You're not faking it. You're not pretending it. Like, you've learned this stuff, and so when you're translating it in art, you're giving people, you're kind of teaching me in a different way. You can't do it in a textbook. You're showing them visually.
Oh, and man, as you're saying that, what came to mind instantly was, you were always, a big fan of Mark Ryden. Mm-hmm. And man, as soon as you said that, the tree show kind of just like showed up in my head.
Right.
And not to say that's the look I'm going for, but he didn't just give you a bunch of paintings of trees. And, and like, you can think of a million ways to do that, but he presented this view of his immersion of like,
yes.
I mean, the views, and I mean, you need to buy a book, one book of Mark Ryden's. I mean, the tree show, and I thought it was so special, and to say, I would hope to maybe be in a vein, in that tree of like, maybe to hope to look that style, or have that passion, or like that look of like wonderment in his style is just, it's always been something I've thought is cool.
He's created definitely a world of his own, where when you see a Mark Ryden painting, it's a Mark Ryden
You're
painting.
in his world.
Right. And I think that you're doing that too, though. I think, obviously we all aspire to be Mark Ryden. It's going to be hard to be Mark Ryden, but...
as our talks, for 10 years, like, finding a right way to put, a conversation together where it's like, finding an artistic voice. It's hard as an apprentice, even as like a certain, tattooer, you're just trying to follow the trend of tattooing. But as art goes, gosh, you can pick 1,000 directions to go in. And, this has kind of been this idea that's opening up into a world that's like, I love the way this is kind of
create
like,
your own natty world.
This is opening up right now. And, we talked off, about, this start of like, I got other ideas now too, and then I want everybody though to think like, the last 2 years though has been a cultivation of this idea and the opening of this world. This 2 years I've really just, I don't go out, I don't really, put out into like a Denver like city community, but
you don't go out to the bars, you're not like a partier.
Oh, I'll grab from nature, and that's what I'll like take on the weekends back to Denver and put that into a painting real quick before like, I forget, just the smell of the tree or just, like the fur texture from, a skunk that I had to trap in a cage, and it's like, there's so many little stories that like, oh man, once you kind of see the painting with, like the wood that, I want to put this presentation, with, all these different sights, and like, there's going to be, bee candles that, like the smell of wax, and you're going to smell what allures, like that paraffin, like that smell of beeswax.
Right.
Like,
well, that's why I wanted to interview you too, not to cut you off there, but I want to make you aware of something important, and that's all this work that you have done. I think that people knowing about all these individual things, it's one thing to go to an art show and be like, okay, cool, those were nice images. But I think the work that you're doing is so much more important than just presenting paintings in an art show in a gallery. I think you're doing scientific work. You're doing a very selfless job of it. I know it costs a lot of money to run this. I know it costs a lot of money to like you. So you're already taking care of your bees, but you're also, on the other hand, you're going to like getting good quality paint. You're getting fucking nice frames made for everything.
Make this look, to not quite a Mark Ryden standard, but
I like your presentation.
That was something, to say, earlier about the art show. I had an art show that I didn't quite have the presentation at the time. It was probably as good as I could have done, but this, this kind of feels like the beginning of this, like, now I can set the stage. And if this, this gallery's beautiful. It's got these walls, in this beautiful opening circle, there's some shapes that I've just always seen, the magnetic word, where I started like my journey, as far as tattooing, there's a lot of like connectiveness to it. So, this feels like, I'm turning 30 like this year. Sort of, This feels like, this cultivation of 10 years of like, what have I wanted to pick, that 1,000 directions, I've kind of put it together in a way that my last show, I know it was okay, but man, it wasn't what I wanted.
Well, a first show is always going to be, you just want to put all your fucking cool stuff in there.
Throw your cards out, and it's been this learning, and you've been a great, like, you had your lore show, and it was like, oh man, to see, that space being used.
Try to be the same presentation, like I definitely looked at a lot of, the Mark Rydens of the world who always put on a nice gallery opening. He goes through a lot of trouble doing frames, and I know we both understood how important that was. And I think that that's what's great. Like, you're not just saying, hey guys, I want to hang some fucking paintings up. Do you mind if I hang these up and we'll play pool around? They'll put some video arcades.
Wanted to make that is like, it was a bar, but this is like, a 40-foot wall, but like,
they were great. You did a ton of fucking work for that show. But for this show, I feel like this is definitely...
It's a focused effort.
Yes.
That has a, I don't want to say the last one didn't have a purpose, but this one, and there's no like, trying to benefit in like a, capitalism way with beekeeping, and that's the thing.
You can't,
like the first thing they'll tell you is like, nobody's gonna get rich off of honey. Nobody's
you
buying
your honey away.
Yeah, I give it to people. So like, another thing to tell people, it's like, I'm not trying to steal bee honey. It's like, I just want to, like, if I can help the 5 miles around whatever hive I have, and I have 4 locations right now. Oh my gosh, like, what better can I do, than just to, like, give them what they need, give them a little bit of help, and then, if they don't do good, just try again, and only try my best, and so.
Well, let's talk about your actual art show then. So you're gonna you're giving a lot of fucking shit, a lot of fucking thought to this, right? Okay. What I'm seeing you have a list of about 30 paintings here, right?
Right. I mean, up to 30 right now. It could be, I think 26 is for sure.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to be, I got a whole month, but like Sean's saying, I mean, it could be 30.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot of great, basically, and everything is a threat to a bee. Every painting is a different threat to the bee, and it's illustrated or painted or.
Yeah, there's a couple, just black, just illustrative, like old advertisements that I wanted to like, maybe add to, kind of change a little bit. There's a couple old illustrations too. I wanted to, homage, these, like little tiny, like, not very rendered, like tiny illustrations, blow them up a little bit, put some color, kind of give them a new but not new,
revive them a bit.
Just put some like a new touch that you would never have seen, like almost an artistic one-off. And look at like, oh man, maybe this was in an old book that, we found, and it was like the, second original, but.
That's dope. So what is the smallest size painting that will be in this show?
I've got a couple that, 5x7, which would be, just a bird head, just with, their name, like just a predatory bird, and that's, got a, little.
So you could own a Matty painting that's, a still small size painting, but
absolutely,
it's still something that you
super affordable, something that I think I try to make where it's not going to be every painting overpriced or something that you have to be an art collector to enjoy.
I think it's important though. It's like if you want to own something by an artist, you're like, well, I can't spend thousands on this, but I would like to own something.
Right.
Giving people something small. So what is the biggest painting?
And then the highlight of the show, I wanted to make this
is the juicy one.
The dramatic part of the show, and having this gallery. There's a wall that I first saw, like this lore show with this giant whale, you look across the entire room, and all you can see is this whale, and this like dramatic, like I don't care if you're 30 feet away, you wanted to walk up to that and just kind of stare at it, and so this image, and I've kind of had this bear like attacking a hive, and so
it's so fucking cool.
I wanted a full-size bear, something that at least would give you the scale of terrifying, beyond like anything a bee could handle.
Right.
That's another one that the bee, it's not going to do anything that a bear, the bear is going to do what it wants and then walk away,
take a lot of it,
and then come back that next night, and so I had a couple nights myself, staying up with a gun trying to keep away a bear, so it's, my highlight, it's, 45 by, 72, it's taller than me, and it had a whole story just from paper to frame to, not having room in my vehicles. I had to go rent.
So where are you painting this at?
It was awful because the paper is in a roll. So you have to like, get in, the shower with, the paper roll to roll it out. And then I let it dry on the bed. It's the size of my queen size bed, and then I pinned it to the wall, projectored it, and then painted it vertical until I just framed it.
No shit.
Painted it dry brush style with watercolor, and it would like, if it would run, if you did a big section, it would run. Like I'd have like a 12-inch line, and I'd be like, I can't do that again. So like some of the areas are like, that's why they're so rough. Like I sent you like one that bigger areas, I'm gonna have to paint it now. I have it in a frame. I can put it on the bed and have it where I can paint it horizontal now. So that's why I'm going to paint it and like geek out on it now. And that's why I was like, I might do a plexi, but it's already framed like to completion right now, and it's flush perfectly. So like,
should I leave it? And well, I would maybe like come back to it.
That's the thing. That's one I can maybe just order it real quick or just kind of get it.
Well, you have all these different, and I'm looking at, like, there's literally, and I don't want to go through all of them because I want them to be surprises, but you have, in addition to, you have a lot of fucking awesome ones. Like, he's got one of raccoons, right? I'm just going to describe this a little bit. He's got these raccoons that are like the Washington crossing the Delaware scene. but they're in raccoon form, and it's so fucking brilliant. It's ridiculous. And when you see these paintings, you'll realize that you can see a lot of your influences in them, but every single one of them feels like a Matty painting.
Thank you,
dude.
You know, and with my mom being, you know, the longest critiquer of me, you know, she's kind of said something to that effect, you know, where she's like, some of these paintings have your personality, you know, which, you know, with tattoo art, you know, you'd want to make everything, you know, your signature style, but
right?
You want to pay homage, or you know, you can't change some things, you know, a Jerry design. Yes, you know what? Do it some justice. And then it's keep it the
tattoo, so you're trying not to make it too personal for you.
Right. So, you know, I love it. With this, you know, I thought that painting, when I was doing some of my landscape, my, you know, Albert, you know, Beardston and Church in this, like, New York Expo, I saw, you know, the Washington, you know, across in the Delaware painting was in this big, like, you know, yearly, like, art show. And the size of it, I mean, it's the biggest painting ever, you know what I mean? Like, next to this beard stint, it made it look like a regular size painting.
Okay.
Which was 10 foot by 6 foot. And I was like, what's this painting? And then you find out, I mean, I think it's, 30 foot wide? I mean...
Yeah, I'm not even sure.
It's 10 foot by 30, I think.
Wow, no kidding.
Oh my God, Sean. I mean, you know, it's unbelievable. And so I thought, wow, if you could do a parody, you know, what the pioneers, they brought these beehives, you know, and these predators were just like... ripe for their taking, you know, they're like, you know, like, oh yeah, bring these beehives to us, you know, bring this new, like, little, you know, sweet honeybee for us. And that parody, you know, where I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I could do, instead of, like, you know, Washington. And, you know, the real story is there's the oldest restaurant in Colorado, Buckhorn Exchange, up in the, you know, upper area. There's like a little canoe, and there's actually these, like, whatchamacallit, like stuffed, you know, there's actually a raccoon and a badger in this canoe. And I saw it like that, and I mean, I instantly thought of that in that
the
place.
Connection to the Washington crossing the
and
Delaware.
So if I hope really that, you know, I mean, I think I painted it close enough to where instantly you'll kind of see that. But I hope if anyone's ever gone to Buckhorn Exchange and seen that canoe, you know what I mean, it's very close to that.
That's very meta, but I hope so too.
Yeah.
Because like we're always like, dude, I'm gonna do this thing where it's like, and they're gonna get it, and
they never will.
Yeah, but you know, it's one of those things when you're at your show. You have to take that opportunity to explain that kind of stuff to people.
Right, and that's, you know, it was a story, you know, and when you hear, like, a Walton Ford, like, explain something.
It's so much better.
Dude, his stories, you know, and it's from an old, like, treasure book, and it's like, where did he get this one story?
Right.
That, like, it's such a, like, painting, and it's descriptive, you know, and, like, I mean, these predators, so many of them, you know, you hear about, like, how they just, like, come in and just... will come in and mess up stuff at night, you know. And one of my paintings is this raccoon, you know, about to kind of have his nightly snack, you know, and he's like looking like a mischievous like raccoon.
The one that's like up in the tree,
right? You know, and that angle, like right before he's about to have his plunder, you know, I wanted to have where they're just, they know what they're doing. They're after this sweet honeybee. Yeah.
Well, I'll let you hit that weed real quick. No, you're good. You're good. No, so, you know, I want to just bring you back to your art show, but so you're going to have paintings, and they're all of different predators, of course, but you also, and that's the theme of your show. That's pretty much the presentation of your show is you're given us an awareness of the threat of the honeybee. Look at these, but you're also doing. Sorry, I don't want you to forget about this. But you're gonna bring your honey there, right?
Right. I'm gonna have, you know, and that's something, you know, like I said, I give out honey, you know, and it's not like, oh, I'll come to the show for some honey, but there will be honey there, you know. And I thought, you know, there will be an area, like, I would love to, you know, if anybody's interested, you know, I got, you know, honey from New Zealand that, you know, I'd love to, like, show someone.
Yeah, you better have some fucking tastings, dude.
There will be, you know, I've gotten, you know, a tattoo client brought me back Australian honey, and it's the darkest, most, like, brown honey, and like you were saying earlier, like a totally different taste.
Yeah.
You know, and I got, you know, honey from Germany. Like, what I want to have is just for anybody who's interested, you know, just to be like, hey, you know, if you want to, like, just, you know, be interested, this is a flavored honey. This is only linden trees. Oh, this is a manuka honey, where it's a medicinal-based honey. You know, and just have, you know, with the show, not only having, you know, there's, you know, products like, candles, that, you can...
Yeah, so the candles, are these things you made?
I'm going to make, candles. I won't have them for the show.
Okay.
There's, like, so many things you can do with, your bee products,
right.
But I want to light the show in some areas with bees, like bee candles. I think would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And just the smell, that specific smell, like churches only like light, beeswax candle because it's a positive ion, and it's like this.
Whoa,
there's something about beeswax.
Yeah.
And it burns like way longer and it's slower and it's like.
That's fucking dope, dude. I had no idea. Bees are fucking magic. They appeal. I can see why you're so drawn to them. Like at this point now, I wrote on my fucking dry erase board over there that I was gonna do the first fucking podcast with Maddie, and I referred to him as Buzzlord the Beekeeper because he smokes like a fucking weed
like a trained dog.
So he's Buzzlord.
I learned from the king, the emperor, though.
Dude, fucking
the one who's pulling the.
We're both so fucking ripped right now, but
but it's something, man. Like I think with like even tattooing, you want to like get into something and it grabs you.
Yeah.
And same thing with beekeeping.
Right.
It's like a good person. With any pet, they want to take good care of them. And this is a weird pet, and so, like you said, like, people, if they've gotten stung, maybe it was by a wasp, maybe it was by a hornet, and with this, I'm showing a hornet's nest that looks like a wasp nest sometimes to people, or, oh, this is a paper wasp, isn't, like a yellow jacket, and, like, there's differences that people are like, oh, man, I got stung by a bee, and I'm like, did you? And they're like, well, I don't know, now you think about it, and I was eating a hot dog, and I'm like, bees aren't going after hot dogs, man. Like, I think you got stung by a hornet, dude. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? So there's this information that, not that we have to all be beekeepers, but if someone was interested, oh, man, I'll be there at the show that just, I'll talk your ear off.
Dude, you should.
Any kind of, like, information, hosting hives is something where, you can have a hive in your backyard. You learn about it, you have someone, I would be someone who could definitely help you, but, there are people that, that just host hives and, want to have, like, a backyard that just is open for beekeepers to keep their bees, and it's just like, to help out, and that's the ultimate goal,
you're definitely approaching this with a selfless mindset.
Just, and there's no, rich beekeeper, unless you're going to have, 20,000 hives and, like, that's your only life, and it's like with tattooing, I feel like I've had some time on the winters, and that's why it's taken, this project's been a 2-year project, but the winters are that perfect time to be, in your kind of, cave, so to speak, right. Just working out this, new art show, and I'm so excited,
Yeah, so what can we expect from that art show?
It's going to be...
So you've worked for this for 2 years.
Right.
And I remember when you first started talking about this, and you've been nothing but like accelerating this process since you first started talking about it. Like everything you said you were going to do, you've done, and then some. So tell me what, as anyone who's going to come to your art show, which is, tell me when it is.
It's going to be April 5th. It's the opening day of the Rockies. Obviously, I picked the sports day that
no one's going to that anyway.
That's what I'm saying. It's up in Fort Collins. My other art show was on opening day, and not that it mattered.
That's fucking crazy.
I just I'm so excited because even like I was saying with my mom, my personality, I'm not great at social media sometimes. I'm not great at doing the like really sell yourself to get this like certain kind of like response back, but with this I want my paintings to show off like, man, all this guy cares about is representing like really beautiful subject matter. Mm-hmm. With I think artists either go in a certain direction this way or that way. I think the technical perfection and like that really just like illustrative perfection is something I really want to like go for right now, and right now that's just my focus, and I think it's some of my best stuff that, like you were saying with photorealism, I wanted to do it in oil, and there's some watercolor, gouache, I would say, more gouache now, and gouache is something that I think I can hit almost a photorealism in that same way,
Mm-hmm.
And with the show, it's just, I wanted to really just take it to a new level, so the show is, I really wanted to push like where it's maybe gonna go in the future too. So with this, I think I've just opened up the subject on, you know, a whole new like naturalism and a, you know, a
you're bringing attention to bees, and you're bringing attention to, and you're using your work to do it, which is, I think, it's impressive that you're able to take your work, and anyone could be painting anything. I'm so selfish. I paint devils and tigers and fucking redheads.
The cool shit. The cool stuff, though.
But and it's all stuff that I'm like, this is what I'm into, bro, whatever, and I'm lucky enough that people want it too. But I think for you and your interest and your passion, and you can see it, you wear it fucking proudly, you've done the research, and everything I've seen you do, I believe in what you're doing, and I believe that you sincerely care about this bee thing, and I think this fucking bee thing you're doing over here is
all right. You guys are good with bees. Yeah. No, that means a lot, you know, and, you know, sometimes I think it's, you know, with tattooing, you know, you don't get to do a project that every day you're like, man, this is the best thing I've ever done, you know, and I'm not trying to, you know, be a, you know, to my clients, oh, here's a testimonial right now. Not every tattoo's the best you've ever done, but this project, you know, and that's what I've been, like, for 2 years, I've been bothering clients saying, yo, I'm about to bring it, you know, and this is something I don't get, you know, athletic endeavors or, you know, other, like, show-off moments. So this, artistically, you know, with Mark Ryden, he created a world, you know. If he's going to do it, man, I'm going to go and swing for the goddamn fences and make my world. You know, there's going to be things that I don't think anybody's seen, at least, you know, in a while, or, you know, something that I want it to maybe look like.
But specifically, you're going to be you're going to be showing the paintings. You're going to have honey.
Have honey there,
you're
you know.
The smells.
The smell. You're going to
have we're going to have the sights.
I want to have even
the taste.
Oh, you're going to have, you know, a live, you know, hive that, not a live hive, but like a hive that, I want to have, you know, a 3D installation piece too, with the sound of a hive, you know, you're getting like that.
Don't give too much.
You know, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I want to have like, there's little bits that I'm, you know, I got a whole month still.
But I like that you're
all the senses, you know, and that's the thing. You when you get into beekeeping, like the smell of it, it's almost like the first time I got tattooed and I smelled Dead Tall Bayou. I'm telling you, I walk into that bee shop and there's a smell instantly, and it reminded me of getting tattooed again. You know what I mean? There's something about it, Shawn. And memory is always with smell for me, and that's, you know, that's the way to my heart, I think.
Dude, that's a great spot for us to end on, but I want you to say, like, what else, you know, what are we gonna, this is coming up, plug it one more time, tell us.
You know, April 5th, you know, I mean, if, you know, 8 o'clock would be a perfect time to show up, you know, it'll be there, you know, till, I think, you know, 11 is probably when, you know, the gallery closes, but anybody who's interested, wants to learn about bees, like wants to, you know, maybe help, you know, even host a hive and like learn about beekeeping, you know, I'll have plenty of information, you know, that you can learn about what you can do, you know, join a bee club, you know, have that, a little bit of information, but, you know, I mean, I think, you know, seeing nature and maybe just having that like knowledge of one thing that, you know, you just really didn't see, you know, in this world that I think just blew me away. And, you know, beekeeping, I mean, you know, it's just my newest obsession, and I think, you know, showing you guys it, I think maybe I'll
open some eyes.
I think I might get someone else obsessed the way I am, and if that's all I can do,
that's fucking
it'll
awesome.
Be success, you know.
Yeah, I think that you will. I think that you have something beautiful here. I love the fucking passion you have for this. It's awesome to see my friend, you know, proud and like doing what you're doing, and I fucking believe in it 100%, and fucking high five.
Oh, hey Shawn, man, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Hey, I love you for doing this.
Oh, this is anytime.
We just got high, drank coffee,
talked
about fucking bees. So, all right.
Oh, awesome.
Thanks, brother.